we started off the day today with a roundtable discussion on what we call historic investments in housing. What this is a oversight check-in essentially on the Homes and Hearts Amendment, which we passed in the budget in 2021 and allocated $65 million worth of recurring funds to 2,400 units of housing to end homelessness. So we got an update from the Department of the Human Services and DC Housing Authority today, and we learned a lot. So first of all, every single voucher has been matched, which is great. That's the starting point. That means it's assigned to a human or a household. The challenge is getting people through the process of their paperwork and identifying the right housing unit and getting them all supported so that they can move into their permanent home. So we talked through the ins and outs of that today. It's really interesting. If this is something you're interested in, it is recorded and on our YouTube channel. And it was about a 4-hour hearing, but the back and forth was, I think, really helpful in understanding what it takes to house people, even once you have the resources in place. This week, I also introduced the Trick or Streets Amendment Act of 2022. If passed, the bill would create an expedited permit for closing local streets to vehicles on Halloween. And that's meant for pedestrian safety and for fostering community connections. We already have a few blocks in the ward that do this. And what we've seen over the past couple of years is it's hard for them to apply for those permits, and it's getting harder for them to be approved because of just various things that have been sort of put into place either by MPD or DDOT. And because Halloween is far and away the most dangerous day of the year for child pedestrians, with like some truly eye-popping stats on how much of an outlier it is, I felt like this is such an obvious way to handle it. So it'll make it easier for people to do road closures, essentially like an expedited block party permit. And this is something other cities do. And it really, I think, contributes to the overall package of things that we're trying to do to keep our roads safe, keep our pedestrians safe. So we're excited about that. It's the end of a council period. I assume we'll have to reintroduce it. But once that happens, then we'll be pushing for a hearing on it in whatever the transportation committee is at that time. We had the advancement of a bill that I had introduced for the first time in 2019, and that's the Bed Bug Control Act. This is to make sure that prospective tenants know about bed bug infestations in their buildings before they sign a lease. It establishes bed bug inspection requirements for contiguous units, and it establishes a timeline for abatement. And it was one of those things that, like, very important, but not super sexy. So it took a couple of intros to get it done. And I thank Councilmember Gray and his team, and Michelle, who used to be on my team there, for getting it through. And Chairman Mendelson worked to get it across the finish line. So that is a really good one that I think is going to help people just beware and protect themselves and their belongings in their homes. We also recently passed the Local Residents Voting Rights Act, Amendment Act. So this is like for nearly a decade, this has been introduced in the council every council period. And I have been championing expanding voting rights for my 8 years on the council so that those who've made the district their home have the right for their voices to be heard in our local issues, no matter their immigration status. So I'm really proud to see this bill move forward. It allows immigrants of any kind to vote in our local elections, and that'll be rolled out in the next several years. So that's very exciting, and it is on top of some other expansions of voting rights we're doing here in the District of Columbia, including making permanent the vote by mail provision that was originally my bill as well. We are also establishing more rights for domestic workers, think housekeepers, nannies, home aides. The Domestic Worker Employment Rights Act has just advanced through 2 out of 3 committees that it was referred to. We're now waiting on a markup in the Business Committee, and we talked to them today, and it sounds like they are deciding between 2 dates for that markup, so that's exciting. This bill will give legal protections to domestic workers It removes the exclusion of domestic servants from the Human Rights Act. So that those protections will now apply to 9,000 workers in the District of Columbia that were previously excluded. And these are workers who can experience wage theft or exploitation. So this is going to protect them, and it will also require a contract that details their duties and their pay for any services provided for more than a certain number of hours a month. So, think, full-time household employees, not your weekend babysitter. And this is the result of domestic workers organizing with allies and working with the council. It's really exciting to see it happen. We also had a hearing on the Containing Litter and Ensuring Adequate Neighborhood Collections, or CLEAN Amendment Act. That's a bill introduced by our neighbor to the north, Janice Lewis George, that will help us address overflowing trash cans and rodents. Snap if that's an issue in your SMD. I was happy to sign on as a co-introducer. And, we know this is an issue in Ward 1. This actually will tackle something that I get emails about all the time. So I know you must too, buildings that have overflowing trash because the receptacles are too small. So it requires multi-fam buildings to provide appropriate size trash cans, recycling cans, or dumpsters by defining the size needed as 32 gallons per residential unit. Be very clear about it so everybody knows what the guidelines are, and there's no more of this, we have plenty of cans, what are you talking about? And then really having no leg to stand on with enforcement. So, again, sometimes it's the less sexy things that have a really big impact on our constituents' lives that we really have to make sure we're paying attention to. Since I last saw you, we also made some big moves in establishing the Office of Migrant Services, which we never had because the District of Columbia, as a local and state entity, is not really tasked with helping people on their federal immigration journey. However, because the governors of Texas and Arizona since April have been sending people to DC and other cities on buses en masse, we realized we need to stand up an office here, and the mayor did not have the authority to do that. So several weeks ago, I moved an emergency bill that she had sent down, worked together with many different advocates and council members to tweak it a little bit for the temporary version. And then we had a hearing last month on a permanent version, excuse me, which likely won't get marked up in this calendar year and would have to go forth into the next council period. But what we do have now is the temporary in place for 225 days. And I think, to be honest with you, after that period of time, or even maybe before, we'll have a chance to evaluate whether the setup is still what we need to do. But having those services and having that team on the ground now is really helping ensure that when people do arrive in the district, they are greeted, they are assisted, and they're provided with the services they need, whether that's travel to another location, housing, medical care, or any other range of services within our human services cluster. So that is something we should all be very proud of. And we thank Mayor Bowser for her leadership on that. So those are my legislative updates. I want to note, I've been working particularly closely with Commissioner Handerhan lately on some issues around 7th and T, just ongoing, both human services and public safety issues. We now have a task force on this led by the mayor, and we are engaging the Cleveland Elementary School, a whole host of district agencies and business owners to really ensure that we can address drug use, sales, homelessness, and any crime in that corridor. And there's, it's a challenging situation. And so we're just trying to treat everybody there who's suffering from addiction with humanity, and also acknowledge that we need to make it a safe place for all who pass through or who live and work in that area. And also worth noting that, we have seen some additional gun violence in the LaDroit Park area in particular, and that there's been some turnover with our violence prevention contract. And so the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement has stepped in a little bit more hands-on across Ward 1. And they've brought in a team from an organization called Life Deeds to assist as well. And they have a long track record and history of doing this work, just not in our ward. So there'll be a new contract, hopefully in place by April. But in the meantime, we have this team. And then our Cure the Streets grant in Ward 1 kicked off just last month and the operator for that grant is called Intercity. They're a nonprofit that I've met the whole team, and they know just as much about Ward 1 as I do, if not more. Some of them have grown up in Ward 1 and still live here. And so it's great to have a team like that on the ground. The Cure the Streets program is very similar to the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement's violence prevention program. The two were actually set up at the exact same time through the NEAR Act. And I think that ultimately one track may prevail over the other. It's been a little bit of an experiment, for lack of a better word, but in the meantime, ensuring that both are fully resourced. We now have our own Cure team in Ward 1 is really great. So that's been very exciting. I think that's probably enough for now. And then if folks have specific questions, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff here that I'm prepared to answer questions on, but always happy to chat. And I will turn it back to the chair to moderate any questions. Thank you.
You're muted. James, you're still muted.
James, you're muted.
I think we have a few questions in the Q&A.
Oh, do you want me to just read them off? Oh, it's all Miss Hightower. Hold on, I think she had trouble with the apparatus.
There was a question from Commissioner Gall about the, I can't remember the name of the act, but it's related to the bed bugs. Can rodents and other pests be included in this as well? Or is there something, a tangential bill kind of that covers that broader net?
Question. So the reason that we did this with bed bugs is because when you have bed bugs in your unit, they get in your clothes, they get in your mattress, they get in any fabric that you own, and they travel from unit to unit, and they can live up to a year even without feeding. And so the nature of the way that they travel is very critical to informing residents. There are already rodent abatement measures in place for the other things that Ms. Gall mentioned. And certainly I take that seriously too, but we haven't had the same, it's just a slightly different, it's a very different situation. And so I think, it's certainly something we can consider down the road, but this was a very specific purpose of ensuring it stops spread between units and to everybody's belongings and whatnot.
I also have some questions. So just like I have just two really quick questions. First one is related to the Clean Act about the multi-family unit dumpsters. This is all one question, sorry.
Okay.
When will that go into effect, and B, who to direct kind of complaints to in this instance?
So it only just had a hearing.
Oh, okay, so we're still in the process. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I do not know if it will move this council period. We'll have to keep an eye on it.
Okay.
And then it'll be DPW.
DPW, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so you'll be working with whoever has oversight of DPW in the next council period, because it will not be council member J.
Okay, sounds good. And then the other question I had was related to like DDOT transparency, which is I'm sure a question you get a lot. As you probably noticed when you were riding your bike this afternoon, once you got north of Euclid, the bike lane was no longer there. It was unpainted, and this has sat unpainted for almost a month now. I've reached out to DDOT multiple times on when we would get an estimate on when that would be repainted. We're still missing crosswalks and bike lanes, and it's becoming an unsafe situation.
And it's
I got
weird
word.
because I keep getting email updates from them in their like newsletter that they're doing 15th Street this week, like every week, right?
Yes, as do I.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Kevin
So,
is going to follow up with Mignon on that.
yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I jump in next?
Fine with me.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember. Really appreciate all the work that you've been doing with your team in the Detroit Park. But just want to focus on the 600 block of tea for a second. So I know that there was the first meeting of the task force last week, and just because I think a lot of people may not have, sat or been into task force meetings, like it would be great to hear a little bit about. I know I see the key players as TBH and MPD. But I know that there's also a lot of business concerns. There's a lot of pedestrian issues. I'm glad you mentioned Cleveland. We are working on some kind of built environment interventions there. Just hoping you could share a little bit about what you kind of like what people can think of when they think of the task force. And again, for people who are kind of trying to figure out where this is, it's really on the block in front of the Howard Theater. But there's really inclusive that intersection on 7th where CVS is. And I would just like to cite, Howard's been a really good partner. They have a lot of property in the area, including some under development, which I'll talk about in the Economic Development Committee update later, but just would love to hear a little bit about what you expect that task force to accomplish.
Yeah, so it's the task force is led by the Mayor's Office of Nightlife, which is interesting because we are basically talking about a daytime thing, but you know what? I'm of the mind that whoever wants to help us is welcome. So here are the people who are involved. The Mayor's Office of Nightlife, the Mokers, of course. I see Gerard's here. And the Department of Behavioral Health, but even more so than that, HIPS, which is our nonprofit organization that focuses on harm reduction, meaning someone who is using drugs or practicing sex work, making sure that they are doing it safely, cleanly, have the resources they need to keep themselves safe. We understand, like, we certainly don't want people doing drugs or having sex outside in Ward 1 or in the District of Columbia, but there are some larger issues there that we're dealing with. So HIPS will come and help people, and they do the needle exchange and they provide condoms and they collect all of that. And they also engage people, right? And talk with them about their circumstances and try to work through that with them so that they can be in a safer place personally. There's also Miriam's Kitchen, who works with people who are experiencing homelessness. It's challenging. There's heavy drug use right here. It is hard to know sometimes if someone is homeless or not. We do not assume that everyone here is homeless. There have been some tents. There was an encampment clearing that the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services worked on. MPD is there as well, but in these situations, it's not so much their patrol that is helpful. It is more the undercover work they do through the crime suppression team that ultimately allows them to make arrests and probably multiple arrests at a time of people who are selling drugs to people in our community and feeding into that addiction.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, like, people are getting taken advantage of there all the time.
All the time.
And we're seeing the downstream impacts, that, and it does impact quality of life. But I do appreciate you fronting that it's people are definitely being preyed upon. But I think the community as a whole is really looking forward to some solutions there. So thank you.
And actually, I know you're probably trying to help me out by saying that's enough, but there's more I do want to share with you. So I was with the Cleveland Elementary School LSAT last week, which is their parent and teacher committee. And there were community members as well. And frankly, I'm not sure why they didn't invite you, Commissioner, but maybe that's just you got a good night off.
I was actually out of the country. I could not join.
There you go. Okay. So one thing we talked about there also is getting Cleveland in the queue for the Safe Passage program, which is if you ever pass by a school during arrival or departure, you see all the people in the green vests. They're the people who help the kids arrive and depart school safely. And it's certainly warranted in this situation because the other thing we have in the mix here is historical gun violence and conflicts just a little further down S Street that are almost exclusively unrelated to the drug use, and they're more crew related neighborhood violence. And a lot of it's been sort of just south of Ward 1, but it's I mean, the border is S, so like, who cares, right? Like, it might as well be Ward 1. So all of that is going on, which is why I also mentioned the violence prevention programs. And it is unfortunately a perfect storm. So it's a tough spot, but we're bringing all the resources we have. And the thing that is really hard for everyone involved is that it takes some time to make this better, especially if it's your small child going to school. It is hard to be patient, and I get that. So we just know, to anyone watching, we're bringing every resource we can here, and we'll do everything we can to make it safer.
Thank you.
Councilmember, I think Chairman Turner is having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to take over facilitating for a minute. We do have 2 more comments from commissioners and 1 comment from the public.
Sure.
I think maybe, why don't we let Commissioner Umar and Commissioner Kensick make their comments, and then we'll take the comment from the public. But try to keep it brief because we're running out of time on our.
Yes.
I'll try to be brief too, sorry.
Yes. Good evening, Councilperson. Nadeau, my apology. I'll make it real brief. I wanted to know, how could I get in touch with you on the violence prevention programs and stuff like that? Because I had a few programs that I wanted to run down the line with you, because I do understand a lot of stuff that's going on now and it's starting to leak into the schools, you know. And I do notice that they don't have a lot of programs in school when it comes to grieving programs or programs, you know, targeted around the kids to be able to understand what's going on with them. Because, you know, it's kind of crazy that, you know, these incidents are happening in schools now. Like recently, a kid just got stabbed in the bathroom school fighting just the other day. And, you know, and by me being in that type of environment a while ago, you know, growing up, I think it'd be a good look if I could be able to, you know, get with you and talk to some of these kids in these schools, man, about, you know, how to being able to grow up to get old, opposed to, you know, too many guns in the community and no programs and no aftercare programs. Because I work out of Ward 7, even though I'm live in Ward 1, and I do a lot of after school programs with these kids, you know, like building skills, social skills, solar programs and stuff like that. And a lot of kids just come right in my garden and just start working with me and doing solar with me and stuff like that, because they know me from that area. And I think it'd be a good look if we could sit down and be able to talk to some of these kids and get in their heads and understand, do grieving programs, opposed to just the word violent prevention. You know, to them, sometimes it sounds like a police call, you know, and if you could do it, I know it sounds negative, but when you say violent prevention, they first think what you can call a police on me, you know, because this is what I be hearing from the youth, opposed to, you know, saying that we can do like a grievance program and find out what's going on with you, you know, who's going through these problems and the problems that's going on. And not only that, can we create a job or a venture for you, a trade certification? That's what was going on with me when I grew up, you know, when it came to violence and stuff. They had an alternate thing for us to do, programs, and that's not really being done in schools anymore. They just teaching the schools and the kids, and not giving them no real programs or nothing to go home to. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. So yes, we should talk. We just had a conversation with Inner City about access to the high schools. And it used to be that our nonprofits doing violence prevention had access to the schools, because guess what? A lot of the fights happening outside start inside the building, right? Like we were all kids once. You remember how that starts in the hallway and then moves out to the parking lot. And unfortunately, in this case, our youth,
Yes,
our young
ma'am.
people have access to firearms, and it gets really deadly really fast, and more people get pulled into it. So first and foremost, and we had a hearing yesterday on reducing the lowering the thresholds for volunteers to get into the schools, because it's like Fort Knox. And what we had when we raised the threshold a few years back was a bunch of our credible messengers got booted out of the schools because, look, you have a criminal record, you no longer pass the check to get into schools working with youth. So there's a balance there. We're working on straightening that out. We also have $20 million a year going into after school and summer programs. So let's sit down, Commissioner, and figure out where to plug you in. I'm sure you're already familiar with a lot of this,
Yes, ma'am.
but happy to do it. And you can
Yes,
email
ma'am.
me anytime to set that up. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
ma'am. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us tonight. what is your office doing in terms of the parking issues we're having throughout Ward 1, actually throughout the entire 8 wards, but particularly Ward 1, and especially in 1B05, your old place, as you like to mention a lot, the ever-growing, never-stopping construction and the coordination between DDOT and currently some of these my own commissioners have agreed at 1250 U Street to have a 106 unit building to be built with no parking spaces, where that's already a very congested, as we all know, area. So I just wonder in general, what is your office doing? And if you could share any of those plans that we're planning on doing to help with some of the parking issues that are happening. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, one of the most important things that we can do to reduce the parking crunch is build more housing that is accessible to transit, like the proposal over the metro there on U Street. The other thing we can do is make transit more reliable. We have almost three bus priority projects that are just about to kick off in Ward 1, so that people know when they want to use the bus that it's going to be there for them. We're doing everything we can to get people who don't need cars to use other modes of transit. You guys saw me on the bike today. We got rid of one car so that, we can get around more easily. And let me just tell you, if your body will do it, we get around faster. We don't ever have to worry about parking. We don't have to worry about traffic. And there's more bike infrastructure in Ward 1 than there has ever been. But by doing all of this, we do make it easier for those who need to park to have access to parking, because we're providing viable, affordable, reliable alternatives to people who don't need to drive. And I think that's the key, and we have to keep at it. So with construction projects, if you have something going on in your SMD that doesn't seem right, they're taking up too much space. There's one right there on Florida Avenue. I can't remember where the boundary is, but north half of Florida Avenue, 1400 block. We've been riding that construction project for months, getting DDOT out there, ticketing them for what they call housekeeping, where they just take up too much space and it looks like trash all over the road. So my office is happy to help with stuff like that, or it looks like they're just really overtaking and more than they need, or they've put up signs and they're not doing the work. That makes constituents crazy, and it makes me crazy too. So we're happy to work with the contractor or DDOT to resolve those issues with you guys, Commissioner. Just reach out and we'll always be happy to tag team on that.
We'll do. And I just like to follow up with also, I love bikes. I think they're great. I think we have to also be realistic when you're going to Costco, to pick up large amounts of quantity of stuff. Bikes and buses aren't always the most reliable ways of getting those. So sometimes cars are needed. And my constituents in this area, I'm telling you, it's a number, besides crime, the parking is really becoming a headache for them. So I can't, I'm glad that you're saying the buses, we're going to try to make them a little more frequent, and also putting 1250U in front of a subway station is going to cure stuff. But again, I don't think 106 units, I would pretty much bet more than 70% of those units will have cars, and they'll have to park on the street. And there's already a lot of no parking as is. So it's just something.
I would just counter that by saying, if you have extra time to read, we have studies that show that it will not be 70%. And that is what we've based our zoning code on. So we've done a lot of work and research in this area. And there was even a really amazing controlled study that came out a couple of years ago that shows if you build parking, people will buy cars when they didn't have them before. So we really need to be smart and follow the data on this and do what's best for our city in that regard. So I appreciate the dialogue. Do we have time for Commissioner Farnan?
I think we have one person from the community who wanted to speak. And
yes, I was going to just elevate her. So thanks, yes, Stan, Commissioner Arlovsky.
Thank you.
And thanks, Council.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, Ms. Hightower, you can take
Hi,
yourself
Ms.
off.
Hightower. Ms. Hightower, make sure you unmute yourself.
Ms. Hightower, I see your hand and you as a panelist. You should be able to click unmute on your phone or computer, whatever you are using. There you go.
I want to say hello to my new council member. It's such a pleasure.
Hi, Ms. Hightower.
Joining in from the great Ward 2 now in here to Ward 1. You and Janice are my council members, and you know I'll tell anybody that, starting with a favorite friend of ours, Mr. Carl Racine. But you know, I want to just ask two brief questions. You know, when I moved here, I had to reach out to you because I already knew when, you know, when Pepco and any other utility company comes into a community, they must notify all of the residents in order for them to not take advantage of entrance and exits. And, you know, we got that done. And I wanted to know, because I've seen a couple of other facilities subjected to not having their courtyards to be entered into or exited out of. Have your office implemented any means of notification so that residents in Ward 1 are aware, especially multifamily units, that, you know, no utility or no construction company can block their entrance?
Yeah, well, luckily this doesn't come up that often. And we certainly are really glad when constituents flag it for us, and we were glad to be able to work with you to resolve that. So one of the things that we always do is we just try to be really vigilant. I mean, you know me, I'm out and about all the time with my eyes open, but we also really are so grateful to have such active and vocal constituents in Ward 1 who will let us know when they see a problem like that so that we can get right on it. So I just want to thank you and know that, you know, we'll stay on it and just make sure that we're protecting public space and its accessibility to our residents.
I just love your people skills, council member. And my last question is not to get into anything. When do you know when when I guess is Phil still my honorable chairman of the District of Columbia is going to be having a hearing on ANCs? Do you have the date of that? Because I must give testimony after an experience I'm encountering with this particular group of commissioners. So do you have a date when that hearing will be able to, you know, be will be beheld?
I suspect the next time that the council will hold a hearing on ANCs will be performance oversight time, which starts in February, because we're winding down the council period now. And it may not be Chairman Mendelson. We'll have to see with the new council structure which committee will have oversight of ANC.
It's very important. I'm going to put it up on my calendar now, February of 2023. I'll still be live and vibrant. And thank you so much for communicating briefly with me. And I look forward to working with you. As you know, I'm a woman of God, but I don't have any nonsense. I don't play that. And I love the fact that we have a council member who believes in all people, all ethnics, all economics. And that's important for me. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Ms. Hightower.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want me to try to quickly answer Sharif B's questions from the chat, from the Q&A?
Sure, if we want to do quick round.
I can just go right down them. You know, I don't think he's asking to be promoted, but one question is, what's the status of the Demphead Reef Center RFP? The answer is it's being revised. The DC government decided to change the configuration of the property, so we no longer need to keep the no longer need to keep the brain of our servers there, and we no longer need to keep the brain of our traffic lights there, to put it in wacky terms. So all of that infrastructure can come out. It's going to a new location. So we're going to revise the RFP so people can envision building the whole thing. And I'm sorry, that means it might come back to you 1B, but hopefully if they have to redo it, it's a truncated process. I have not considered funding research into converting all DC liquor stores to ABCs similar in Virginia, to be honest with you. I'm happy to hear more about it, but I don't know that that's going to be one of my top priorities right now. I don't know if we are experiencing any particular systemic challenges with the system that we have right now. And that's typically when I would consider making a change like that. The final question was, can we look into limiting the number of smoke shops that surround schools? Yes, I think that is something that ANC should be working with neighbors on as these are being licensed. But the challenge right now is we are in a gray area with the implementation of I-71, the legalization of marijuana, And what that means is that stores that are gifting is probably what you're thinking of, that you purchase something and then they gift you some cannabis. They legally, or they're sort of in a legal gray area. They're not necessarily breaking the law, but they're also not very well regulated because we don't have a legal construct for this. And that is because Congress, unfortunately. So we'll keep working through that. We are always hopeful that Andy Harris will go away and that we will have a clean path to the full legalization of marijuana, but it hasn't happened yet. And I have worked on many campaigns against him. So I'll tell you, everybody keep getting out there in the Eastern Shore. Thank you all very much for allowing me to join you. I know you have a full meeting agenda, a very full meeting agenda. Let me just shout out two things. One, when I was on the ANC, we also passed a resolution asking to transfer Meridian Hill Malcolm X Park to the district. As you can tell, 15 years later, it still hasn't happened. So let's keep at it. And of course, the 15th Street bike lanes, which are a hot topic already tonight, something that we established back when I was on the ANC and was one of the very first protected bike lane in the District of Columbia. So thank you for continuing to engage on this aging infrastructure. Also, if you noticed, last week they cleaned the leaves from the bike lane and the contractor left big, huge black plastic bags in the middle of the lane from P Street all the way up. So I have already registered my complaint with DDOT and they are dealing with that. So when they come again, hopefully we will have a better outcome. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful meeting.
Thank you, Council Member. Okay, everyone, we will begin our official meeting. This is November 3rd, 2022. ANC 1B monthly meeting. We're meeting via Zoom. Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Handerhan,
Present.
Commissioner Orlowski,
Present.
Commissioner Umar,
Present.
Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Kinsick,
Present.
Commissioner Floyd, Commissioner Ewart,
Present.
Commissioner Bena,
Present.
Commissioner Turner,
Present.
Commissioner Farnan,
Present.
Commissioner Harris, present. We have a quorum of 9 of 11. Sorry.
Thank you. Commissioners, before you, you have an agenda with the consent agenda. Is there a motion for the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Is there a
Second.
second? Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, agenda is approved. Is there a report on short-term family housing? Public safety and community engagement, Commissioner Farnan.
Perfect. Just a quick update today. So the past month, we have been reaching out to local organizations, specifically with Howard University and folks neighboring U Street through connections with Temperance Alley Garden and others on opportunities to engage and sponsor events before the end of this year. Still coming up with some ideas. So perhaps we'll see 2 or 3 of those come to fruition in the December meeting for approval, but nothing to vote on today. So MPD was not able to provide a report to me prior to today. However, they have agreed to attend our next in-person public safety meeting on the 17th at 7 p.m. I am hoping that a representative from the Office of the Attorney General will also be able to join us at that time. If they cannot and we're able to reschedule, I'll make sure to notify the community. But as of right now, mark your calendars for the 17th at 7 p.m., likely an outdoor location. Thank you.
Any questions? Zoning, preservation and development, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening, Commission. There is a couple items that you need to vote on. and I'm going to take just a brief few seconds to give us an update on the ongoing 1250U project. Since our last meeting here at the commission, they have submitted their application to the zoning commission. And a set down hearing for review is on November 10th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. At this meeting, the zoning commission will discuss the application with no input from the developer or the community, and they will decide whether it's fit for a public hearing. Then a pre-hearing statement is made by the developer with the hopes that their hearing will occur sometime in February of 2023. We are in the last throes of putting together the benefits package with the hope of getting that finished before the end of the year so the commission can vote on it. Two items that we need to have the commission vote on tonight are item number 1, property at 2730 Georgia Avenue Northwest, located in an M4 zone. It's owned by Howard University. It's in 1B09, which is James Turner's SMD, and it's a BZA case. They're asking for a special exception under the matter of right uses to allow for food delivery service in the detached one-story commercial building that's there on the lot. The university, just so to give a little background, the university has a catering firm called Sedesco that does all of its in-house catering for events that either the students have, the faculty has when they do events or all that kind of stuff, and it's all catered by this company. It has been housed in the past on campus, but when they did an upgrade to the facility that houses the cafeteria, that was closed and relocated to what is commonly known as the Herb 1 site, which is located at 7th and S, which is now under construction and has been put out to a development team to be developed. So they are in need of a new location. So this property has, previous to Howard acquiring it, was a Burger King. So it has all the facilities on board for food preparation and what is needed for Sedesco to put together the food that they need for the banquets. There will be no outside sales to any street people. It's only used for the university purposes. So the committee had quite a bit of discussion on this, and it's recommending that the ANC support the applicant's request for the special exception matter of right use to allow the food delivery service in the existing building in the MU4 zone. It further requires the applicant to adhere to the zoning requirements for the wall that needs to be constructed on the alley at the lot level, part of the code. The exception to be placed for a 5-year period, with the extension being authorized by BZA upon their approval at that point. So they would have to come back to the ANC and ask for a 5-year extension, and then it would go back to the BZA and be approved. And that the fencing along the Gerard Street side of the lot be covered up with some kind of art wrap so that activity occurring on the lot is not seen from the street. I know that was a lot, but I wanted to make sure you guys understood exactly what we were doing. So.
Thank you, Patrick. This is in my SMD. It takes a currently underutilized property, puts it into productive use for Howard for a number of years, until the larger parcel along that area can some decision be made of what Howard wants to do and in joint development or single development on that block. But it does take something that's not utilized today and puts it in something very productive on a temporary basis, temporary being 5 years. Very supportive of this, and know it's important for us to support Howard when they have some good use of underutilized property to help them with that. And a special thank you to Patrick for helping facilitate a one-on-one meeting with the most concerned neighbor. Patrick, thank you for working with Sebastian and Dr. Leonard on that. And there's no community opposition to this. So with that, I will move approval of the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, so now the second item on the list is for, excuse me, a property located at 2112 Georgia Avenue Northwest. It's in an MU10 zone. It is being developed by a Lot 3 LLC and Howard University. It's in 1B11, which is Amanda Fornan's BZA case. This application is for a special exception to the matter of right uses to permit an experimental research and testing laboratory in a new detached 6-story with below-grade parking and penthouse office building in MU10 zone. This little background so people know what's going on. This is the last of the Howard University lots that are on Georgia Avenue that are the infamous parking lot lots that are being developed. So this will conclude all of the remaining 7 parcels that we successfully extracted from the campus plan years ago, and now all of these sites are in process to be developed. Hopefully they will not all come up at the same time because they're staggering in the process that they're going forward on. This is being developed as the National Research Center for Health Disparity, which will aim to attract pharmaceutical companies and biomedical research organizations for focus on treating chronic illnesses, especially those that affect communities of color. This building is on the west side of Georgia Avenue between Barry Place and the north side of the Bryant Street extension. So that's at the corner of where the McDonald's is, and then the Barry, that's Barry Place, and then Bryant Street is the street that's going to be constructed through the middle of this lot. The lot will be divided into 2 buildings, one featuring the lab and research and one as the residential units. In the residential part, there will be approximately 446 units with 23,500 square feet of ground floor retail, 8% IZ units with an additional 20 units above the IZ, which is part of the deal that we negotiated with the extraction through Howard University. So the committee is recommending that the ANC support the application's request for the special exception matter of right use to permit the experimental research and testing laboratory in the new detached 6-story with below-grade parking, a penthouse office building in the MU10 zone.
Thank you, Patrick, and thanks to those who are in the attendees who helped with the briefing of Patrick and myself, and then of course briefed the full ZPD committee. Special thanks to Dr. Leonard, who I know is on. This is just moving in the right direction and starting communication much earlier than others, so we deeply appreciate that. I move that we approve the special exception and accept the ZPD's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, so the next meeting of the committee will be on Monday, November 21st via Zoom. As I always say, everyone is welcome. We have a very heated discussion in these meetings, and sometimes it's quite interesting. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Patrick. Economic Development, Commissioner Henderhan.
Thank you so much, Chair Turner. Larry Henderhan, Commissioner 1B01. We have a few members of the committee on the line, so thank you. I don't see anyone who's joining us from any of the main streets or clean streets, but if you would like to give an update from one of those organizations, please drop a note in the chat. We had two presentations. We don't have anything to vote on this month. I just to kind of pick up one thread from the conversation with the council member. I was unaware that there was going to be a new RFP for Reeves, so I sent a note to DemPed after hearing that, and hopefully I'll be able to get more information to share with this group about exactly what that means for us. As I've given updates at previous meetings, the infrastructure that's currently at the site is in the process of being relocated, and that is what has delayed the decision for a development team. It has been ongoing for quite some time. I have passed on the frustration of the committee to the powers that be several times. I also know that these processes take a long time. So, but if there is in fact going to be a revised RFP, I'll make sure this group knows about it, understands the community engagement that goes with it. At our October meeting, we had two presentations about different parcels in the corridor. The first is 1847th Street Northwest. This is across from the Shaw Howard Metro. I will send around, since the actual meeting and the minutes that were submitted, we got a one-pager on what is going to be coming in at this location, but and I can't, if you could disable my screen share, I could probably share it really quick right now. But it's a really kind of helpful flyer that explains the overall plans for what is currently a Howard-owned property, kind of a relatively nondescript brick building.
You should be able to share now, Commissioner Henry.
You are the best. Hopefully you can see this pretty well. The development's called Langston Apartments. You see a image of the building, and you in the bottom right hand corner you can see kind of where the metro is, the glass building, and then the large structure with red. It is going to be 204 units, 190 market rate units, 4 IZ units. In the conversation with the committee, they also share there's an additional 20 affordable units that are going to be in the property. I know Dr. Leonard's on the line from Howard, and my desk him to weigh in if folks have questions about that. There's going to be 77 resident parking spaces, and there was a request by the committee to look into having some of those open to the community or neighbors. And there's going to be 15,000 feet of ground floor retail. The timeline's pretty far out, so the building will be completed in Q4 of 2024. That means they don't have any agreements with the development parcels there, and we committed to giving them further kind of feedback about what the community might like to see as these processes move forward. This is in 1B01 right now, but will be 1B02 starting in January. Any questions about this development before I move on? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing our kind of main presentation this past month, and thank you for the commissioners that joined.
Actually, I'm sorry, Commissioner Henderhan. I have one really quick question.
Yeah.
The 14 IZ units, do you know what they are reserved at? And then you said 20 additional units. What is the kind of mechanism for affordability on those as well?
It's a great question. Answering the second question first, and Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that you've been really involved in this, but we have had a really great partnership with Howard, and this is a Howard property, and they have committed to enhancing the level of affordability for projects that get developed in their lots, and it is not through IZ or through like kind of traditional units. I'm not sure how to think about those units, aside from the fact that there is a level of affordability. The IZ units, I think they said 60% of AMI, but there was some back and forth, and committee member Gall may remember better than me if they committed to a specific range or just said, we're kind of targeting around the 60, or that's what we normally do. We did express an interest in like deeply affordable units. The unit mix is also, the building is going to be predominantly studios and 1-bedrooms. And we reiterated our interest in family sized units, both affordable and market rate, knowing that that's something that's really important to the community. And there's a great elementary school right all around the corner for kids. So, it's a complicated time for development. They didn't commit necessarily to changing anything, but I do feel like we were heard when it comes to the unit size.
Awesome. Thanks for providing that detail, Commissioner Anderhan.
Sure.
So Larry, let me just briefly give the update on that. It's
Please, yeah.
14 units that are the IZ requirements, which is 8%. And there was discussion between whether they should be at 80 or 60. And I don't know that they completely committed to that. I can't remember. The additional 20 units are the units that correspond back to the agreement that we made with Howard on the development of properties that they're doing. So that core number, that's included in that. And I believe that those units are at 60%. If I'm wrong, Dr. Leonard can correct me.
Thanks, Patrick.
Definitely. And I do, you've heard me put in this plug before, but this is a really great example of the kind of proactive outreach that Howard has been doing, at least as long as I've been working with them. They came to the committee asking to kind of report out on the latest developments of this. It hadn't been kind of reviewed by the ANC for quite a while, but construction has started, and they think the whole building will be down, I think, around or after Thanksgiving. That was just the update I got today. Next up, we heard from Director Chris Donald, who is the head of the DC Housing Finance Agency, about the plans to redevelop 815 Florida Ave Northwest. This is not a standard disposition like the Reeve Center would be, so the kind of process will go slightly differently, but they have committed to, and that's because the Housing Finance Agency is not a district entity, it's a semi-independent agency. Anyways, they've committed to engaging with us over the course of the development plans there. This is a signature site at the corner of 9th and Florida. I think most people know it. Given their mission, so this was almost like a pre-meeting. There was no PowerPoint. I would have shared that if we had it. But a very early engagement as they are in negotiations with the development team that is really going to lean in on their mission, which is to provide housing. They, are too far. They're not quite far long enough yet to offer the level of details that you're going to see with the 7th Street property. That's understandable. They did say that they ideally would be doing, predominantly housing and as close to 100% affordable as possible. Completion is at least 36 months out. And the feedback from the committee was pretty wide ranging. I think that, one thing we've said a lot is the interest in, the arts overlay district being fully realized at locations like this. 18-hour activity in the corridor is really important to immediate neighbors. I think that, that because of that, there's a real preference from the committee for retail on the ground level. And I think, if there was office opportunities, that would be great. There also seemed to be a consensus on the committee, which, if you have feelings about this, please shoot me a note offline, about the ability to design a more impactful structure if some of the row houses on that corner were kind of required as part of this property. They didn't make a commitment one way or the other, but that came up a lot. We talked about parking, we talked about noise, we talked about affordability. And I think, and this goes back to a conversation that Chairman Turner had with Director Donald maybe a year ago. The transparency that this community kind of has grown to expect with some of these projects is something we hope can be realized at this site. So I wish I had a little bit more information to share there, but I do feel like we have now the latest for that development. And once they lock in the deal with the developer, they'll come back with us to talk about what that could look like. There'll be formal community engagement that will be held likely next year. Questions there before I wrap up? Okay. We talked about Reeves, not a whole lot. We're already kind of going along in the meeting, but I just want to put in a plug because redistricting does not fall really to any jurisdiction of the ANC, like super clearly. But just a reminder that the election is next Tuesday. You might be, in a different ward than you were last year. You might be voting in a different SMD for ANCs. So please, really encourage you to take a look at your ballot, beforehand. You should have gotten it mailed to you. And of course, in-person voting has already started and you can do it up through Tuesday. Our next meeting is going to be November 17th at 6:30. And you can register on our website, anc1b.org.
Thank you. Transportation, Commissioner Ewart.
Good evening, everyone. We have two resolutions to vote on at this ANC meeting. Well, one, and I'm going to explain why we're not voting on the second one until December. The first one is a 15th Street sidewalk expansion resolution. This is the portion of 15th Street that we are talking about is just barely an ANC 1B, and this would mostly be a resolution that would kind of support other neighboring ANCs that are planning to propose resolutions of similar kind of language. The resolution is requesting that DDOT look to take away a travel lane in order to expand the sidewalk on 15th Street. As Commissioner Nadeau noted in the info session, 15th Street was the first protected bike lane in the city, and it is really widely used. However, the sidewalks in that area are way too narrow at points right now, especially like the Scottish Rite building that's currently under construction. The sidewalk is so narrow that it's kind of navigable that someone who is wheelchair bound or has mobility issues just simply cannot get by on the sidewalk. So this resolution is requesting that DDOT look to expand the sidewalk. It has all the language that we typically ask for in these proactive resolutions, that DDOT bring a design to the ANC, whether at the Transportation Committee or at a similarly sized meeting. Hopefully we see some movement on this. The Transportation Committee recommendation recommends full ANC support of the resolution to recommend and support DDOT to redesign 15th Street Northwest to be more pedestrian and bicycle friendly through the expansion of the sidewalks.
Was that a formal motion?
Sorry, yes, that is a motion. Sorry.
I would like to point out, have you spoken to, because the ANCs, so this is, I think it's something that I would be for, but there are some implications in terms of when you get farther north of 15th Street towards Malcolm X and Meridian Hill Park. So have you spoken to the other ANCs, because it's not the reference that you're pointing out is in Ward 2.
Before you answer that, there was a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, now it's discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I've been in discussion with the commissioners in 2F and 2B about their effort to kind of ask DDOT to kind of redesign 15th Street to be more pedestrian friendly. They are also going through the process of working resolutions out of their committees and full ANCs. And the portion that we are in reference to here is almost wholly south of U Street, which, like I said, by the slimmest margins, there is a tiny portion of that is within the current ANC 1B boundaries. But this is mostly a resolution that would be in support of our neighboring single member district or neighboring ANC's efforts to do this.
Yeah, I know what portion you're talking about, because right now that's in my SMD, but I would strongly urge us maybe to include language in the resolution talking about support for the others, because this starts to get into their territory. And as much as we want to make sure we're working with them and collaborating, that they don't feel that we're kind of intruding on that. I'm sure they don't feel that way, but I just want to make that clear that this is, like you said, it is a small portion, but the examples that you referenced are pretty deep into Ward 2.
Yeah, and I would happily take a friendly amendment to include language that this would be in support of efforts from neighboring ANCs. I also saw Commissioner Thomas, you had your hand up. Did you have a question about this resolution? You're on mute. Oh, we're still unable to hear you, Commissioner Thomas. I'm still unable to hear what you're saying. I don't know if it's an issue with your audio or not. Still nothing.
Commissioner, maybe put in the chat and then try to call in with call-in audio.
The other thing you can try, Commissioner Thomas, is on your mic setting, the little caret on the side, and see if your mic is connected via another source.
All right, I think she said don't worry about it. Commissioner Turner, I think Commissioner Harris made a friendly amendment.
And you accepted the.
And I have accepted it, yes.
Okay, we have a modified amendment before us. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you.
So the other resolution that I brought forward was about transfer of ownership of Malcolm X Park, Meridian Hill Park, from National Park Service to ANC 1B. Since the Transportation Committee, someone reached out to Commissioner Israel and I can't remember, Ward 4 ANC Commissioner, and myself about research that they're doing. They're a student over at George Washington University who's doing research on public policy, specifically related to ownership of parks in DC, and so this was a very convenient timing. And they explained to us that some of the mechanisms that we talk about in the resolution are not necessary for the transfer of the land. So I'm going to rework that resolution and take it back through the committee as just kind of a consent item, as long as no one has any issues with it, and then bring it back in December. Commissioner Kensick?
No issues with it. I just think that some people are raising their hand and being dismissed. They should be able to ask questions if they need be. Thank you.
All right.
I think we were just waiting for commissioners to speak. So Commissioner Ewert, if you want me to take anyone off of mute. I think Ms. Hightower's got her hand up, but Ms. Hightower, if you have another question, happy to take you off of mute, and same thing with Mr. Dildon. Are you ready for me to?
Yeah. If folks have questions about transportation issues, I'm happy to address any. Mr. Deladon, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. I appreciate your sentiment, Commissioner Harris. I just want to report that this matter was taken up, the resolution was taken up at the Mobility Committee in 2B. And
sorry, really quickly, are you talking about 15th Street?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was no support for it. In fact, there was a lot of opposition to it. So in line with what you were suggesting, that you don't want to overpower your neighboring ANCs, It is coming up before the ANC at the next meeting. I think will be a week from next Wednesday, perhaps. And it will be considered at that time, but that was the result of the mobility committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And then I believe Ms. Hightower had her hand raised, but I don't know if that might be left over from a
Ms.
previous
Hightower's
comment.
had her hand raised for a while, but
Okay.
Ms. Hightower, if you can put into chat if you do have a question about transportation that you would like to be taken off of mute, I can take you off of mute. I just don't want to promote you if that's not the case.
While we sort that out, just going to mention the next meeting. It says on the agenda that it's going to be November 9th. Unfortunately, due to overlapping work commitments, I'm unable to have the meeting on the 9th, and we are working out the rescheduled date. Right now, tentative plans are for November 14th, but we'll confirm obviously before the 7th in order to have the week notice that's necessary for ANC public meetings. Please stay tuned for folks who are interested. Thank you. Commissioner Kenzak.
Yeah, will that be updated on the calendar?
Yeah, I'll make sure it's updated on the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have ABR. There are a number of items that Commissioner Benner has to bring. Given that the number of items, let's see if there are, Commissioner Benner, if you could see if there's community input on any of your items before we hit all of them. Get all the community input up front.
So we have to make votes on each one. So
Right.
Can we just take comments as we go?
It'll take longer unless you take them at the very beginning on all of them.
Well, I think it would,
If you want to
considering
do it
there's,
that way, if you want to do it each one and comments, that's fine.
I would like to go with each one because there's 14 of them, and I think that.
Then proceed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have several votes to take. I just want to provide a little bit of context quickly for people who aren't familiar. This is renewal season. The way that DC works, all license renewals are due at the same time on the 3-year schedule. So every Class C tavern license was due September 30th, the renewal. So that's why we have a lot. And every 3 years, this is the only time that the ANC really has to engage with the license holder, the establishment, to have a community agreement. And so that's why this is happening now. I direct people to our committee webpage for a step-by-step process of how the ABR process works. And I will just remind folks that these are our motions to protest. All that means is it's a motion for the ANC to keep it standing in the ABR process, process, so that we can pursue a community agreement, a settlement agreement with these entities. We have no power to deny a license. We have no power to do anything of that sort. So this is a formality. Okay, first up on the agenda is actually the only new license application we have before us. It is for Towel at 1328 Florida Avenue Northwest in 1B04, Commissioner Deborah Thomas's district. That's a new Class C tavern license with an entertainment endorsement for the indoor premises only and a sidewalk cafe endorsement. The ABR committee recommendation was that the full ANC recommended a protest of the new license application on peace, order, quiet, all applicable grounds, including noise issues and hour of operations on sidewalk cafe and indoors. Essentially, the committee's feedback here and the feedback that I heard from Commissioner Thomas was that about the hours of the sidewalk cafe, because they were asking for the full 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. hours, which is out of step with everywhere else on this quiet residential block. Commissioner Thomas, are you able to speak now? Okay.
I think Commissioner Thomas still might be having trouble. We're trying to get the call-in details. So
okay. So I did confer with Commissioner Thomas about this prior to the ABR committee meeting, and we are in touch with. Oh, there you go. We can hear you now, Deborah.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I don't have a real issue with. We're gonna come out of this. Yeah, I don't have an issue with it at all. And so I'm in agreement with protesting.
Great.
So, yeah, I don't have any real comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Yeah, and we can work together with the applicant and their counsel on the settlement agreement. They did express openness to amending the hours of the sidewalk cafe. So we can proceed on that. So I can make the motion here. I
Let's get
motion that.
community comment before you make a motion.
Are there any community comments? Okay. I motion that the full ANC protests the new Class C tavern license of Tall at 1328 Florida Avenue Northwest on grounds of peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including noise issues and hours of operation of the sidewalk cafe and indoors.
Before we second, I have a question.
We need to second, then you can have discussion.
Okay.
For a second.
I'll second. And then I also have a discussion point, but I'll let Commissioner Kensick go first.
Thanks, Commissioner Ewert. So didn't really understand Commissioner Thomas's point. So she's saying she doesn't not agreeing with the protest, or she is agreeing with the protest?
Agreement.
She's in agreement.
She's in agreement. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just the issue at hand is really the hours of the outdoor space.
And then as far as the outdoor space goes, is this in right of way? Does this need to go to the transportation committee at all?
So we brought that up. Patrick brought that up with them in the meeting. It is the alley off Florida Avenue there, right by La Colombe and Maidan. So it's technically a public alley. So it's a sidewalk cafe. It does need a DDOT plan to be approved, but there's not really through traffic on that alley. It's that cobblestone alley there. Yeah, we can refer it to your committee as well if you'd like.
Yeah, if you just want to send them to us, just I have a feeling it will kind of just be repetitive to what is the discussions that are going on in your committee, but to ensure that dotting our I's, crossing our T's.
Do they even need to though?
Well.
Because this isn't it's not like it's closed for pedestrian, like it's a dead end alley. There's already like a sidewalk cafe there.
If it's classified as public space, it has to go to DDOT and be routed through TOPS to transportation.
Yeah, it also used to be when the school was there, that was the two buildings that were connected. So it's never really ever been any thoroughway traffic or anything there. I think it's actually like a part of the makeup between the two buildings.
All right.
It still needs to have a permit from DOT to use, even though they've been using it.
Once
this establishment is new, so they still have to get a permit.
Okay, so once they submit the permit and the TOPS number comes back, then we can take it at the transportation committee meeting. But
sounds like a plan.
For them.
Sounds like a plan.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
James, can we move to a vote?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes.
Okay. Next up is we are doing the renewals. Okay, there are about 13, so I want to move semi quickly. The next one is Flash 645 Florida Avenue Northwest in 1B01 Larry Handerhan's district. Larry, do you want to speak on this? And I know there are some attendees that maybe want to speak on it. This has been a long process. There's a lot of neighbors engaged in this. There's been walkthroughs of the establishment. Go ahead, Larry.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner Bennett. Yeah, so, noise is definitely a concern here. There's a 24-hour entertainment endorsement, which is unique to 1B, and I believe potentially 1B Ward 1 and potentially the whole city, although I don't know that last thing to be true. I will say that owner Flash, one of the co-owners of Flash is on the line, and has been a really good partner talking to immediate neighbors about the concerns. They have invested a number of mitigation strategies, are invested in a number of mitigation strategies already to address the noise. Been in contact as recently as earlier today to talk about what we would kind of put in a settlement agreement that would meet the needs of the community and the establishment. I don't think any community members are here. We have a direct line to the establishment. Actually, and if you want to speak, you could raise your hand, and not necessary at all. I guess I would just say that you being here is a great sign to show that we are, despite a lot of concerns about the noise, we are in a good spot to build on the trust we have to reach a settlement agreement that will address the issues.
Okay, seeing no comments, Larry, would you like to make the motion?
Sure. I motion that we accept the committee's recommendation to protest Flash on the grounds of peace, order, and quiet.
There a second?
Sorry, 1 second. Larry, can you read the full motion from the agenda packet? We have been asked to be doing
Sure.
very
Understood.
specifically because there's been issues with Abra.
Yep. I motion that the full ANC accept the recommendation that the full ANC protest the renewal of Class C tavern license for Flash based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including hours of entertainment and operation. Did I get that right?
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll keep it rolling.
I would make for Commissioner Handerhan is that Flash, I believe, has 2 settlement agreements.
Yes.
And that you resolve those 2 into 1. Right now they're operating under 2 because the original one was not superseded.
This seems to be a weird thing that's happening in my S&D from previous times. So yes, I'm definitely aware of that, and we'll make sure to address the superseding issue with this resettlement agreement. And I just also want to thank Commissioner Vena for all this help in navigating all these cases.
Thanks. Okay, we'll keep it rolling. The next one is Ben's Next Door, 1211 U Street Northwest and 1B12, Commissioner Harris's district. Commissioner Harris, do you want to speak on that?
Yes, because I think this certainly might pique some interest. We've received several complaints about Ben's Next Door, particularly with their speakers that they've installed kind of in the alley and outside. And Ben's Chili Bowl and Ben's Next Door are very fantastic community partners. So I'm very much hoping that we can come to a settlement agreement. However, I've reached out, Councilmember Nadeau has reached out several times to try to see if they can mitigate the noise better. But they haven't, which is why which is why the AVR committee recommended to protest.
Deborah, you can unmute. Deborah, you're muted.
Commissioner Thomas, you're muted.
Just wanted to offer any assistance. I know if Brianne has talked with them, Commissioner Brianne, and Sable, you as well. So you think it's just a matter of them not responding because they're too busy or something, or you just think that they're just ignoring it? What is your feel?
I want to go in with best intentions, so I'm going to say maybe it's they're too busy. But we have
Yeah.
but we have reached out multiple times before this, and we've had several community members submit concerns. So this isn't something that is just like stemming overnight. This has been, unfortunately, like a long-standing
Yeah.
issue.
Mm.
And I just want to let everyone in the attendees know and my fellow commissioners know that the decision to make these votes was done based on several feedback points from the ANC commissioner for that district, from the members of the ABR committee who are residents of the community, from our feedback form on our website and in our newsletter where anyone can submit a concern or a compliment about an ABRA licensed establishment, and then also ABRA violation history as well, which is public record that we request in advance of our ABR committee meeting. So all of these, I'm happy to take comments from people, but all of these items have been litigated once at our committee meeting. And so now we just are as a whole ANC approving them. So Commissioner Kensick, did you have something on Ben's next door?
I wouldn't have my raised hand up if I didn't, right? Thanks. Commissioner Harris, how are you going about handling it when you're actually reaching out to Ben's Chili or the next door? How are you actually reaching out to them via call, letter, and they're getting no response? What is your approach? How are you doing it?
It has been all of the above, Commissioner Kinsick. This isn't my first protest or first renewal. So Commissioner Bana knows that I've been reaching out. I've visited the establishment. I also worked closely with the establishment when they opened up their sports gambling. So I am going in again with best intentions and hoping that we can withdraw the protest once we reach a settlement agreement.
Okay. Would you like to make the motion, Commissioner Harris?
Yes. I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of the Class C tavern license for Ben's Next Door at 1211 U Street Northwest based on peace, order, and quiet in all applicable grounds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed? One opposed, abstention? Motion passes. Thank you.
Next up is Red Lounge 2013 A 14th Street, also in Commissioner Harris's district. Do you want to speak on it at all, Commissioner Harris?
Yeah, it's really to make sure the settlement agreement and things are updated, mostly around trash and the line queuing in front of the establishment. I know that there have been issues with Red Lounge, but it's hard to say if it's stemming from Red Lounge or if it's just kind of the nature of 14th Street. But again, as with many of these, and I would imagine that my fellow commissioners agree, that if we're able to reach a settlement agreement before the protest hearing, even before the roll call hearing, that once we reach that we would likely withdraw the protest.
Commissioner Kensick, do you have?
Yes, I just there's a question from Ms. Gloria Hightower. So I thought since it's regarding this, you should be able to ask the question.
Okay. Can you unmute her, Sable?
Yeah. Ms. Hightower, you should be able to take yourself off of mute.
It's interesting. You got a two-folded process. You got to put it into Q&A. You want to speak, and then you all motion. My only question about Ben's Chili Bowl, because it's a historic staple in our city. You know what? I think the decency would have been giving them a 5 business days notice that at the next meeting, if they don't correct something, the action you will take. And I understand conversing with them. I don't know if you spoke to Kamal. I don't know if you spoke to Virginia, Miss Virginia, but you know, I always like to go to the top. And I understand the feedback because, you know, you got feedback from the Lincoln Theater. So I go way back with that. But I just think that this 1B commission, in terms of what people complain about, and it may be evidentiary, but when I'm getting ready to file a protest on you, I'm going to tell you. That's one thing. You ain't got to, even though I didn't came to you a couple of times, you know, I'm going to tell you and give you 5 days to respond back. And from that 5 days, you should be here in front of you all so that they can hear your position. I understand that it can be annoying to people who are trying to reside. I'm annoyed by, you know, so that's all I'm saying. It's already happened. But whatever your process is for us constituents, you need to look at your Q&A, and I'm dealing with it, and I'm saying yes, you know, and then I got raised my hand, and then the motion took place. So you can't give me 1 second. You at least need to give the constituents 1 minute as you go through every agenda item. That's all I'm saying. It's just common sense.
Miss Hightower, one thing, Commissioner Boehner, before we hop into Ben's next door, Miss Hightower, that was my fault. I'm secretary and I monitor the Q&A, but as you'll hear, there's a lot of establishments that are in my SMD and I missed that. So if one of the other commissioners can make sure that as we're going through 1B12, since there's a lot, to keep an eye out on the Q&A, that would be really helpful for me. Because I do have to read off of the agenda for these motions. So apologies, Ms. Hightower, that was on me.
I accept your apologies, Commissioner Harris. But one thing in Ward 2 that we did 2F, we made sure that our commissioners, which were the constituents, do not have to also serve as secretary, because it's kind of hard to be the secretary and also speak on the agenda items that you have before you. And it is handling 2 and 3 folded responsibilities at one time is very tedious. I'm not angry with you.
I'm sorry you feel that way, and we will address it moving forward.
But I'm just saying that's something I will be advocating on in 2023.
Okay. Let's move on. And what I'm going to ask is that if folks can look at the agenda, and if there's anything in this section, go ahead and type in the Q&A that you want to, which establishment you have a question about. So it's in the Q&A, and when we get to that, we can take your comment.
There's no way no one can do that reasonably. That's not it's a practical recommendation, but it's not logical, because sometimes you know
I think
what
we need a point of order here, just because we do have so many AVR items to get through.
I understand you do have AVR, but don't cut me off. Cut him off. Okay, and I'm going to say this because he has a valid point that, hey, you can skim through if you have time. But you know what, as the president and founding member of the Friends of Carter Barron, I don't have time to be babysitting like that. When I get
Miss Hightower, Miss Hightower, this is the second public meeting where all of these items were discussed. We have a standing alcoholic beverage committee that meets the 3rd Wednesday of every month. All of these items were discussed at that committee first, and then we are now voting on those recommendations here. So this is the second time they're being discussed.
Well, I wouldn't. It doesn't matter if it's the 4th, but what I'm gonna say to you, Commissioner Baum, you know what? The bottom line is that as you give constructive advice, so can a constituent, and don't ever forget that, sir.
I will not forget you.
Oh, and I won't forget you either. And I hope you know, and I won't forget you either. So that's just all I got to say. But again, Commissioner Harris, I accept your apologies. But you know, doing a dual role is a hellified responsibility during a time frame of this kind. You know,
which is why I asked another commissioner to help me through this short period. I wanted to clarify, though, I did reach out to Kamal, and several neighbors have also reached out to Kamal. And just as another point, this isn't Ben's Chili Bowl. This is their establishment next door. Ben's Chili Bowl, I don't believe, serves alcohol. So this is for next door. And again, I am not happy about this, but because it has been raised multiple times over and we have had multiple outreach points where we have talked to them and they have agreed, this is the point where we're at. And it's certainly something that I will be reaching out to them directly and hoping and conveying that I would like to withdraw this protest before the roll call hearing.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, Commissioner Harris. That sounds very practical and professional of you. Thank you.
And we'll get back to Red Lounge. And I'll just remind folks that this protest vote is the start of a conversation. It's not the end of a conversation. What this does is kick off the process of conversating and discussing these issues. So, Commissioner Harris, do you want to make a motion on Red Lounge?
Yes. I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of the Class C tavern license at Red Lounge at 2013A 14th Street Northwest based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioners, discussion?
Yeah, I think that we know that area is a loud area. I think we're all pretty well known with Red Lounge and all of it. You know, I think that some of these places are nervous or don't feel comfortable signing some of these settlement agreements, as they have I've seen and read through. They're not all equal. And I brought that up at the last ABRA meeting, that the only two that I have been two apart. But I think that's something that people have to keep in mind, that that is the heart of U Street, and there is going to be noises, and there's going to be items that are addressed that, you know, cannot be completely contained, especially when you're dealing with sound. Let's just be real.
Commissioner Kinsick,
Excuse me, I'm still speaking. Commissioner Harris, you're out of line. I'm still speaking. When I'm done, then please. What I'm saying is, it's the area, and that area. It is a known area. There's a lot of places in the hub. A lot of places, and they have a lot of music, and there is a lot of noise, and it does have people that are walking around and standing in lines. I've been here 7 years in the same area, and it's been like that in the last 7 years. So I don't know what the past commissioners have done, but it doesn't seem like it's working, because it's still the same thing. Let's just be real. Thank you.
Which is why we are protesting and establishing another settlement agreement. Commissioner Kinsick, I live pretty much above Red Lounge. I live right there. I am well aware of the noise. I've lived here for 10 years and I know what's going on. I've also negotiated settlement agreements with most of the establishments on that block, including the adjacent block on U Street. So very well aware we are doing what we are meant to do as commissioners, and none of these establishments have once raised to me that they feel like they can't come to me, when normally they actually come to me every weekend.
Okay. Are we ready to proceed to a vote?
No, we have a question in the chat. You just told me to look. We're monitoring that, right?
Commissioner Thomas actually has her hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to make a comment. I'm not going to hold you guys long. Commissioner Allen, you said you've been around for 7 years, and you're absolutely right, that whole corridor. But when you start building residential over top of commercial, especially nightlife, it comes with its share of problems. However, because you have residents, and it's not only on top of these establishments, but you have to some way figure out how to build a medium between the residents and the establishments. Now, Red Lounge, as a matter of fact, I think most of those establishments around the use right there where the Red Lounge is. I took Sable, Commissioner Harris, through there. This was a while back, how nasty that alley was back there. We spoke to, and that's not even my commission, but it was extending an olive branch. You know, we want to support our businesses in the community, but we need to find some medium between the residents and the businesses. And in order to do that, you have to establish something to bring people to the table so that you can have those kinds of conversations, because if not, you get the mess that you get. It's not always just about the noise. I know that's an issue, but once again, when you start building residential on top of nightlife establishments, then yeah, you do get that. So the protests are to bring people to the table for conversations. I've been in this neighborhood for 60 plus years, on my one block for 40, as most of you all know. And you do get complaints from neighbors who live directly over top of these establishments, or even on the streets just behind them. And so the protest is actually to bring people to the table and come up with some kind of agreement. And the community is invited to those meetings and negotiations as well, so that both parties knows what's expected and what the conversation is, and then they can come on to some kind of agreement. And that's between the residents as well as the businesses. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit, that, it's not just to say, we're protesting everyone. But if there's an issue, and even before issues sometimes, especially with new establishments, it's best to have something to bring folks together so that they'll know what's expected of them, and it's vice versa. So I don't want to go on, but that's part of, and the main part and reasoning behind the protests, if that helps some.
Thanks, Commissioner Thomas.
Okay,
I
you're
think
welcome.
it also is important for everybody to understand that by protesting an ABRA license, it gives us extra time to do exactly what Zabel and Deborah have been talking about, to reach out to the people and try and connect to them. You have up until the time of actual protest sealing to remove the ANC's protest. And if you don't protest it in the right time frame, you lose your standing, and then you don't have an option to talk to anybody and get a settlement agreement if that's what you want, or work out issues. So this is a protection method for the ANC to be able to continue negotiating up until the time of our actual protest.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas and Patrick, for articulating what I apparently failed to articulate. Your calm voices and history in the community is very, very welcome. So thank you. Commissioner Turner, can we move to a vote on this?
Yes, we were having community discussion.
I think we're okay.
There was a second, and that was comments.
Okay, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. 1 nay. Abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, moving to the next one. This is Law Society at 2001 14th Street Northwest, also in 1B12, Commissioner Harris's district. Again, we can kind of just move through these. It's similar issues at each one. We litigated them at the ABR committee meeting, and I really encourage folks that are interested in this to come to those meetings. We spend 3 hours on this topic alone. So, Commissioner Harris, do you want to make any comments, or do you just want to make the motion?
Well, let's get community comment on each of them, if there is any.
None that I see.
Yeah.
Sable, do you want to make the motion?
Yeah. I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of the Class C tavern license at Law Society at 2001 14th Street Northwest, based on peace, order, and quiet and all applicable grounds.
Is there a second? Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. 1 nay. Motion passes.
Okay, moving on. Victory Restaurant and Lounge, 2005 14th Street Northwest, 1B12, Commissioner Harris's district. Do you have any comments, or would you like to make the motion?
Is there
Any community comments, please go in the chat.
This is the perfect example of what Commissioner Thomas and Mr. Nelson were talking about. So we had come to the final leg of establishing a settlement agreement with Victory. And I did not protest the establishment based on good faith that we would sign the settlement agreement and that would be put in place. And then because we didn't protest and there was no layer of accountability, the establishment and the attorney ghosted me after at least 10 follow-ups from me, including phone calls. So this is why we do establish these. And even though protest is a very loaded word, it doesn't always often mean our sentiment or convey what we're trying to do. So this is an example of that. And this is why we will be protesting and wanting to establish better standards with their summer garden that we were trying to establish with the settlement agreement in the first place.
Okay, it looks like there's no community comments in the chat for this one. So Commissioners, why don't you make the motion?
I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of the Class C tavern license at Victory Restaurant and Lounge at 2005 14th Street based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. One nay, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, we are now moving to 1B02, which is Commissioner Orlaski's district. There's a lot in this district as well. I want folks to know that pretty much every one of these establishments in 1B02, there are very active community members who have given us a lot of feedback on many of these establishments. So that was taken into consideration when these when we made these recommendations. So first up is Mama San / Harlot, 2001 11th Street Northwest. Commissioner Orlaski, anything you want to say? Any comments from the community? Put in the chat. Otherwise, make the motion.
Sure. Just to start out, it seems like there's quite a few of them in 1B02, and that's because there are something like 150 alcohol licenses in my district. It's the most of any in the city, as far as I know. This is what I was actually told when I started doing this. So it's a lot, and they all happen at the same time, as we mentioned before. So Mama San Harlot is actually on the corner of my street. When they opened, I engaged with their owners and their staff, and we did have a settlement agreement worked out. Since they've been open, they pretty much ignored it, and the people that live on my block and in my neighborhood have had several noise complaints about them. So I plan on reaching out to them and hopefully getting some sort of explanation as to why that's happening, and to hopefully get them to be a little bit more respectful of their neighbors. That being said, I will move that the full.
Let's see if there's any comment.
There's no community comments in the chat.
Okay. I move that the full NC protest the renewal of Class C tavern license based on peace, order, quiet, all applicable grounds for Mama San Harlot.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion passes.
Okay, next we have Cloud Restaurant and Lounge. So any community members, put in the chat if you have something to say about Cloud Restaurant and Lounge, 1919 9th Street Northwest. Commissioner Orlaski, any comments?
No, just several noise complaints and queuing issues mostly. And this is one that's pretty important to the WNA, that's the Westminster Neighborhood Association that lives just off of 9th Street. That's pretty important.
I'll also note that. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
No, I thought I heard someone had a comment, but I guess not.
No, there's no comments in the chat. You can go ahead and make the motion if you want to read the motion from the one, because there were community members that wanted the public safety element in there as well.
Right, that's also part of it. So I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of Class C tavern license for Cloud Restaurant and Lounge based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including public safety, security plan, and operating hours.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Dirty Goose. Again, if you have questions and comments from the community, put them in the chat. Dirty Goose at 913 U Street Northwest, Commissioner Orlaski's district. Dan, do you have any comments about it? I'll just say right off the bat, the committee members identified noise issues, and that was the main issue, specifically about the rooftop.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So do we want to, are there any comments, community comments on that?
No.
All right. So I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of Class C tavern license for the Dirty Goose based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including rooftop noise and operating hours.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. One no. Abstention? Motion passes.
Okay. Next, 801 Restaurant and Bar. Community members, if you have a comment, put it in the chat for 801 Restaurant and Bar. It's at 801 Florida Avenue, Commissioner Orlaski's District 1B02. We received concerns about this based on noise through our publicly available feedback form on our website.
Yeah, I've actually heard several noise complaints about 801. So they have a bit of a history of being loud. Anyway, so I will move that the full ANC protests the renewal of Class C tavern license for 801 Restaurant and Bar on the basis of peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including rooftop noise and operating hours.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Commissioner Kinsick, I didn't get your vote.
I said aye. I raised my hand aye. Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Empire Lounge. This is at 1909 9th Street. If anyone has comments, you can put them in the chat. However, since we took this vote, the Attorney General's office actually shut down Empire Lounge and has forced their license into safekeeping / forcing them to sell due to a history of violations. Dan, do you want to make this motion, or should we just, is it a moot point at this point?
Yeah, I think it's moot now because they won't exist pretty much. So I don't know if there's a point to making a motion to protest a non-existent bar.
Can I just ask, just in case this issue comes up in like future commissions, do you have a sense, Commissioner Boehner, about what the issues were that led to the pretty serious step?
I have the order, and I can send it to you. I just don't have it handy
Okay.
right
No,
here.
that's okay. As long as there's just like the
I will say
yeah.
we were in a protest hearing with Empire Lounge based on their substantial change application to expand their capacity. This was not stemming from that. This was stemming from other issues that violations that ABRA was pursuing, and after ABRA goes to the Attorney General's office, and so I can send you that order about what it centers around. Okay.
I'd like to see a copy of that too, please. Thank you.
I will send it to the entire committee or the entire commission. Next up is MK Lounge, 1930 9th Street Northwest. If anyone has comments about MK Lounge, please announce it in the chat. Commissioner Orlaski, anything about MK Lounge?
Again, mostly noise violations, noise issues. They are right next to several residences and there are several behind them, so they have a lot of problems. And I think there's also some trash issues also. Violations of settlement agreement, that's also on there, but I'll include that as part of the motion.
Yeah, a member of the ABR committee basically said that they have a settlement agreement, but there's been issues with them
They do have a
violating
settlement
terms of it or
agreement.
not adhering to it.
Yeah, they don't really pay any attention to it. So I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of Class C tavern license for MK Lounge based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including violations of settlement agreement, trash, cleanliness, parking, and noise.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes.
Okay, we're coming in this home stretch, just two left. Next up is Bros Dynasty, BROZ Dynasty at 1905 9th Street Northwest. This is a unique situation that this was a transfer. They purchased the license from what was Cortez, and then based on the timing of the purchase, immediately have to now renew it because it was when those renewals were due. They have a large rooftop, and the settlement agreement is pretty old, and it's a new operator. And that was what the committee identified as the need to kick off these conversations via protest. Dan, anything that I forgot there?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, I don't see anything in the chat about Bros Dynasty. Do you want to go ahead and make a motion?
Sure, I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of Class C tavern license for Bros Dynasty based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including rooftop noise and operating hours.
For a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, the last one, Secret Lounge at 1928 9th Street Northwest. Anyone put your community comments in the chat? Dan, did you want to speak on this one?
Again, it's similar issues, noise, no safety plan, public safety issues surrounding incidents in and around the establishment, crowds, queuing, noise, just a bunch of things. So
I don't see any comments. Do you want to make the motion?
Sure. I move that the full ANC protest the renewal of ANC Class C tavern license for Secret Lounge based on peace, order, quiet, and all applicable grounds, including operating hours, crowding, noise, public safety, security plan, and parking.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, that is everything. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me. I wish we could vote on it in one big slate, but attorneys and have challenged that as not being proper in front of ABRA, so that's why we have to do individual. I encourage folks to come to our next meeting, Wednesday, November 16th at 7 p.m. We usually spend every better part of 3 hours talking about these issues. So if you're interested, we can really hash out those details there, and then we can really discuss those things. So we're going to have a lot more in November. I already have over a dozen placards that have come through since this last meeting. So thank you.
Your next meeting is?
I said Wednesday, November 16th at 7 p.m.
Right, sorry, I missed that. Just a comment, earlier in the discussion of ABR, Commissioner Kinzig brought up a question of how do we notify protests and settlement agreements. I know we all deal with this a lot. If you don't have an SMD that has liquor licenses in it, sometimes it's good just to know that. So maybe that's a good thing for ABR to touch on every now and then with with commissioners and remind how we deal with protests.
Yeah, and I'll just say that we had Director Musali of Abra as our guest speaker on our last meeting. Two things. One, he reminded us that at the beginning of the year, so come January, February, Abra is going to put on trainings for all commissioners and members of the community to learn more about this process. Go to those trainings, they're helpful. Two, one of the big issues with these renewals is that when they put out these placards, they don't put the establishment's contact information on it, even though they have the contact information. So it's very difficult to reach out to the proper person to invite them to the meetings and to do those things when they don't do that. And the director of Abra committed to getting that done and fixing their data systems to make that contact information more readily available. That's all I'll say. Sorry for taking up so much time in ABR.
Thank you. I think that's true of ZPD as well. Many times we'll get something that's say James Turner LLC, but LLC doesn't necessarily have all the contact information for the owner of the LLC. So there's lots of bits of information that occasionally we don't have. That's a need to have, and we have to chase it down. So thank you. Administrative, Commissioner Henderhan discussed Election Day coming up. There's been early voting by mail. A good thing about voting since in the past elections, if there's a much higher voter turnout thing, more representation. So if you haven't voted, please do vote. Next item is a review of the special committee report. The chair of the special committee, Mr. Lasky.
Hi, thank you. As many of you will remember, in the October meeting, we voted to convene a special committee to review allegations made against Commissioner Kensick. The committee originally consisted of 5 members. It was one was challenged, so it was limited to 4. That was myself as chairs, Commissioner Umar, Commissioner Ewert, and Commissioner Henderhan. We conducted an investigation over that span of that month. We had a public meeting last Thursday. We did send an initial report to Commissioner Kensick. He had 5 days to respond. He responded within that time frame. The packet contains the initial report we sent, Commissioner Kensick's response, a statement of conclusions, which I will read, and a draft censure resolution. So I will go ahead and read the statement of conclusions. This is the statement of conclusions of Special Committee of ANC 1B to review allegations against Commissioner Alan Kensick. The members of the special committee have reviewed the allegations of misconduct against Commissioner Alan Kensick and the evidence both supporting and opposing each allegation. The committee would like to make it clear that the only remedy available to an ANC if such allegations are found to be valid is censure. Censure carries a penalty of an official condemnation of actions and a bar from serving on ANC committees or executive positions for the remainder of a commissioner's term. All evidence supporting the allegations below can be found in the initial report. Commissioner Kensick submitted the following evidence in opposition with his response. He submitted text exchange with Commissioner Kensick and Commissioner Harris during September monthly ANC meeting. This is linked. All of the information is links to the actual evidence. So if you look at this, you'll see it's linked and you can click it and it'll take you to the actual document. Screenshots of tweets from Commissioner Baina, also the link included. Screenshot of private message from Commissioner Baina, also the link included. Now I'll read the allegations. The findings of each allegation. The special committee voted 2 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions that the evidence presented both for and against is sufficient to show that Alan Kensick on allegation 1 used his official position to coerce concessions from local establishments. Commissioner Kensick denied the allegations in his response as to only one establishment. He did not address corroborating evidence of his conduct provided in the initial report. Allegation 2, see allegation 1 above. 3, special committee voted 1 yea, 2 nays, 0 abstentions that the evidence presented both for and against does not sufficiently show that Commissioner Kensick abused his position in being banned from certain establishments for his behavior. Allegation 4, the special committee voted 0 yeas, 2 nays, 0 abstentions, that the evidence presented both for and against does not sufficiently show that Commissioner Kensick conducted himself in violation of ANC 1B Code of Conduct or the rules of ethical conduct for an ANC commissioner. While he did on several occasions show disrespect towards other commissioners and conducted himself in a questionable manner during several official public meetings, the special committee believes that the circumstances and evidence surrounding these exchanges do not sufficiently rise to the level of official censure. Allegation 5, see allegation 4 above. Allegation 6, see allegation 4 above. Allegation 7, the committee voted 2 yeas, 1 nay, 0 abstentions, that the evidence presented both for and against is sufficient to show that Commissioner Kensick did violate prohibitions on commissioners using ANC resources, including ANC emails and official public meetings for political campaign purposes. This behavior was repeated after initially being advised that doing so is in violation of rules regarding conduct of a Washington, D.C. official. See initial report allegation 7 for more information. In conclusion, in making its decision, the special committee members considered all evidence presented both for and against each allegation. While much of Commissioner Kensick's conduct has shown questionable judgment and a clear lack of respect for his fellow commissioners, even conduct that many might consider abusive, the special committee ultimately decided that Commissioner Kensick's attempts at abusing his power as an ANC commissioner outlined in allegations 1, 2, and 7 necessitated a censure recommendation. By majority vote, the special committee believed that an official censure is warranted as described above. So with that being said, we are happy to take some comments.
This information is included in the packet that is.
Sorry?
This information is available in.
Yes, this is in the packet from tonight's meeting. It's all there, both the initial reports, including the evidence and Commissioner Kensick's response, the conclusion I just read, and the draft censure resolution. So if we have any comments from the community, we'd ask that you please keep them brief so we can. All right, not seeing any, I will move that the ANC vote.
Hold on.
Do we have we do have one, Karen? Okay. Oh, and Commissioner Thomas, I apologize.
Yeah.
So, hold on, Ms. Thomas or Commissioner Thomas, before you go, just so everyone knows, we're going to put a hard time limit on comments. I think we should, Mr. Olaski, or Commissioner Olaski, and then limit comments to 1 per person. And then we're going to go in the order of Commissioner Thomas and then the 2 attendees from the audience, Ms. Gall and Ms. Hightower.
Okay. So for clarity, I've been reading, actually I read it several times. This special committee was put together to address the issues from the complaints and I'm sorry. So like I said, for clarity, I have read and is still reading the complaints and the issues. And so this committee was put together to address the issues. And it appears that Commissioner Allen has had an opportunity to speak and respond. Am I correct? Yes. And so today we're just voting on whether or not to impose.
Yes, that's the case. Yes.
And then what, I guess I'm trying to get clarity about what happens or what does this censorship actually mean? Is this just a way of making sure that commissioners, not only just Allen, but moving forward, just to make sure that our meetings are conducted in a proper manner as well as our commissioners? So this is pretty much what this is and would apply to after this is put together. So after this will be an official record. That's what I'm trying to get to. An official form to address issues from commissioners. Am I correct? This is what this is.
The censure process, yeah, that's okay. Essentially what it is. It's an administrative procedure that's conducted by an ANC in order to investigate and determine the veracity of allegations that would be then, the purpose of which would be to hold commissioners accountable. The censure punishments are minimal. They're, you can't serve on committees, you can't be an executive for the remainder of your term. And it's basically just an official statement of disapproval.
Okay. Just wanted clarity and make sure I was understanding what I was reading.
It's the method for which an ANC can hold their own members accountable for their actions.
Okay.
And that's not a statement about any of this proceeding. It's just that's what it generally is.
Okay.
Do you want to take the public comments?
Let's just go through commissioners first and then public comments. Commissioner Kenzo.
Yeah, a couple of things. First thing, all due respect to Commissioner Thomas, I don't feel she should be able to vote on this as we are running against each other in a campaign. I also wanted to say that I really feel wrongfully framed and prosecuted. You see censures for embezzlement. You're seeing what Silverstein's going through right now. You also are censuring me with like 4 days before a election. It's kind of strange. And not only that, but I'm not a part of any chair committee right now, and I'm not a part of any executive. So really, the censure of doing so, and that's the punishment, really doesn't make much sense to me. But I would actually like to read something, and then I can move on, because some of my track items for some reason didn't reach to the committee. I'm not sure how, but I just want to say this is an underhand and undemocratic effort to get a colleague to walk lockstep with their oppressive, corrupt actions or be voted out of office. This is a deliberate slandering process that is being instituted because their desire to only have commissioners who only and always concur with them. It's critical to ensure that this is a blatant abuse and bullying from their positions is immediately stopped. As this culture that they are now attempting to create, it's a new ad hoc creation they just did, will cause tremendous harm to the fairness, justice, and humanity of our community. Their usage of untrue, unfounded allegations to serve to me as a weapon to censure me only 4 days before an election is frankly despicable. I will also say I have never caused harm to the commissioners or the commission's integrity reputation. I have and I will act on behalf of the tenets of the ANC oath of office, and I have never used my position or title unless in official capacity. In allegation 1 through 3, the first allegation, I'm not going to have to read through it again, but I'll just say I deny the allegation as a whole. I never used my ANC position for anything other than official business. I've never used my ANC position to gain access into any establishments with an exclamation mark. The integrity that I was raised would not allow me to do this or use this position for power. My parents have taught me better. During the past 7 years of me living in 1B, I have been to Nellie's less than 6 occasions. It is troubling that I would be labeled as a repeat offender, as I have not had any adverse interactions with Nellie's staff and patrons. I have never harassed or being accused of harassing any staff of patrons at Nellie's. This is an establishment that has been recognized for its assaultive behavior towards patrons. Within the past 2 years, Nellie's has continued to receive violations and investigations into their actions and violations of laws and order. As the ANC committee states, they've received a complaint into my alleged behavior months prior, but chose to act only a few weeks before this election. Ironic. This questions their motivation as to the alleged complaint, the seriousness of the allegation, and the consensual action of censure would require this committee, consisting of an attorney, Commissioner Orlasky, to provide a signed statement from those persons witnessing the alleged event. For number 2, as far as the alleged allegation from Keaton Fedek, the owner of Kiki, I again deny this allegation. I have not been notified of any notice to ban from Kiki. This is 100% hearsay, that's all. On June 1st, Commissioner Eric Bana alleges that he received information that I refused to leave during the time due to being a commissioner. But again, he failed to act on the allegation for over 4 months. 4 months. After June 1st, I have continued.
Commissioner, I don't want to cut you off. I do want to say we're limiting time comments, so just please wrap up. 1 minute.
I'm sorry. I'll finish. I'm almost done. Thank you. And stop interrupting me again, please. They like to do this around here. I don't know why. After June 1st, has continued to support this establishment without any incident or notification from staff or not being allowed into Kiki during my few visits. Furthermore, I find it concerning that this bar would continue to accept my patronage and go to another commissioner and defame my character by allegedly making false statements about me. I deny ever stating that I worked for Abra, and if Kiki didn't allow me to say I would get in trouble. It is not so. It was well known I am not the commission in Abra, and I've only been to 2 meetings in the past 2 months. It is disheartening that the ANC has sought to use DC barred in DC, whatever, someone that Commissioner Farner, who just interrupted me, has close ties to, just like the girl that's on the call from the Eagle, Sarah Winnick, where Commissioner Farnan also went to school, American University. Just ironic how this happens. DC barred again.
Please move on. 30 seconds. We need to move on.
Stop interrupting me, Farnan. You've done enough.
Commissioner Kensick, I'm going to call a point of order. All you're doing is reciting your response letter. This is all language that is in the packet. You've gone over your time limit. We're going to move on to the next commenter.
It's not in. It isn't in there. This was my tracking that was not included. So I think it's important.
Chair Turner, there's a point of order called.
We're going to move on to the next commenter, Commissioner Umar.
Yes, good evening. My only main issue was that I read it 3 times, so I was very clear what I read. But what I didn't read or didn't see was any proof from these people that made these allegations. So I can only look at this as if it could have been any one of us that went to any of these establishments, which I don't go to anyway, but if it could be any of us, would this same thing could happen? You know, somebody could make a complaint without any evidence, because I didn't see anything, any bar notices or nothing in the complaints. I mean, that was my whole issue when I was, trying to bring this up about, I didn't see any evidence. I heard only like a lot of hearsay, say. And it troubles me because it kind of makes me think about James. When James make allegations,
Commissioner Umar,
well,
I think
okay,
that
stop
there we go again.
People.
How much time do I got first?
You got 1 minute.
You have
left,
1 more
Commissioner
minute.
Umar.
Okay, if I got 1 minute, let me talk, please. Thank you. It goes back to James. Like I said, every time I say James' name, everybody want me to be quiet. When I say about when it comes to James being these meetings drunk, James also could try to convince me not to run
You have
again.
reached 2 minutes, Commissioner Umar. We're going to move on to the next commenter.
He said there was another person better than me that could run better than me. I mean, I'm only just saying.
Turner,
I see a lot of. All right, I'm gonna be quiet because I see where this kangaroo stuff going.
Commissioner Bana.
I'm going to share my screen to make the timer known. When it goes off, we are going to be moving on to the next commenter.
And actually, I'm before Commissioner Bana, sorry. I just would like to say a point of clarification. I do not believe Commissioner Thomas needs to recuse herself. If that was the case, then Commissioner Kinsick would need to do the same thing. This has nothing to do with the election, despite allegations, completely false allegations that are being made. So I would just like to put that out there, and there's nothing that has been said where Commissioner Thomas.
Commissioner, we can see your email, sorry.
I would also like to point out that we did, in fact, and we have email evidence that we did, in fact, reach out to the right departments and agencies when this all occurred. So this was not happening kind of overnight. This was not planned before the election. I have email exchanges with Bega. I'm sure other commissioners have exchanges with OCF, Office of Campaign Finance, and OAG, which we did take their advisement. This committee was set up based on their advisement. It has nothing to do with things that we just pulled out and created ourselves. We have a paper trail. We also have a paper trail of the allegations that were made, including from myself and other commissioners and the establishment owner. So there was complete proper evidence. And for anyone, any commissioner on this call to say there wasn't is false, and they need to reread their emails.
Commissioner Bena.
I'll just be very brief. I made the initial motion to start the special committee. I think it's very clear if you look at the committee's report and you look at the emails, Commissioner Kensick treats a lot of us with disrespect. He targets and harasses specific commissioners, and that behavior needs to be called out, and it can't be gone unanswered. I'll echo what Commissioner Harris said in that when the allegations on about Mr. Kensick being at bars and getting on the verge of being kicked out and saying I'm an ANC commissioner, when we received those complaints in May, we did go to the proper offices, and nothing has been done. And so this is the only method that we have to bring accountability to the folks on our own commission. And I'll just say, if anyone reads that report, you can make the judgment for yourself. And bad behavior can't go unanswered, and accountability needs to happen. And it's, no one wants to be doing this, but it has to be done. And I hope that my fellow commissioners vote in favor of the censure motion. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Can I just take quick second? I promise you it'll be one quick second. Alan, I wanted to address you very quickly. In the beginning, you were willing and did support me and help me in terms of getting my last, I think, 10 signatures of some sort. The reason why I question and I asked the questions, because I wanted to be clear about what this process was. I wanted to be clear about the complaints. I wanted to be clear about your comments, your response, and also to say your signs are up everywhere. You have not once seen my sign up anywhere. And so to ask that I've excused myself from a process because of an election, that makes no sense. I'm quite sure that the mayor and councilperson, everybody else that has a position where they're from time to time have to take a vote or what have you, that the election should have nothing to do with this, with that decision, and especially not in this case. Again, I wanted to just address you because it seems like you were a little upset because I asked the questions. I started out by asking about clarity. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Farnan.
Thank you, Commissioner Ewer. And I just want to make 3 points to the audience today and anyone who may be watching this in the future. Just for the record, first, want to thank my fellow commissioners who served on this committee, took many hours of their time to listen to residents, talk to bar owners and patrons, and understand the facts that have happened, and recommended a very well-informed censure motion. Second, I want to echo what Commissioner Bena has said. Nobody wants to be doing this on the ANC. We have, quite frankly, been forced to do this due to Commissioner Kensick's actions. And point 3, Swear I had a point three. Oh, actions must go with consequences. So when you act out and you act in a manner that you believe have no consequences, and there actually are none, then those actions continue. But today we are actually taking action and understanding that actions and words have consequences. And I look forward to hopefully improving all actions of commissioners on this meeting after today. Thanks.
There'll be about 3 of them.
Commissioner Orlowski, could you moderate the attendees?
If you can take the screen share down, so I can't see the.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll raise I'll share my screen in between.
Okay.
After we've
the
elevated.
timer, that's fine, and we'll move ahead with our first member of the community. So Karen Gall, can we get Karen Gall's permissions elevated so she can make a comment?
Good evening, everyone, community members and commissioners. I have a question, and I just based on Dan, what you had mentioned in regards to the voting. Was the vote 2 out of 4 commissioners in regards to that? And was it and this is just for your recommendations that you came up with. And that was the initial question. And as you all proceeded, I had another one. Are you all doing an overall from the very beginning of this year, an evaluation of the behaviors of all of the commissioners, or is this just only Commissioner Kensick? Because I'm really clear, because I mean, this meeting alone definitely will, in regards to disrespect of community members and commissioners, that has happened repeatedly on this particular meeting. But as far as commissioners' behaviors, are you guys evaluating commissioners in general for the entire term? So those are the questions that I'm interested in knowing the answer to. Thank you.
So the first one was about the vote tallies.
Yes, sir, because you guys did.
Right, I know I can answer that for you. It's in the footnote in the actual document, but I can explain it a little bit better. According to our bylaws, chairs of committees only vote in the event of a tie. So what you'll notice is on votes where there was a 2-1, that was because I had to cast a tie-breaking vote. On ones where it was 2-0 or 0-2, I did not vote because there was no tie, and my vote would not have changed the outcome. And that's in keeping with our bylaws for committees. Your second question on reviewing all commissioners, no, that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is based on a motion that was voted on at our October 6th meeting and passed to form a committee to review evidence for and against the 7 allegations in that motion that was voted on and passed. If someone else wants to make a motion and can get it passed to review someone else's conduct, they're welcome to do that.
So committee members, I mean, is it only stationed for the commissioners to vote on the commissioner's conduct, or the community members will have the opportunity to vote on the commissioner's conduct?
As far as the committee's
right. Did you guys only take that information in regards to the conduct of your commissioners? Are you doing that based on your commission, the commissioners, or are you getting this feedback from the committee, the community members, to ask you to vote on the commissioner's conduct as well?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Do you mean evidence, or do you mean actual input from, or actually the actual votes?
No, sir. What I'm asking, did you receive, in order to draw up this particular chart, these allegations, did you ask for the community to help you guys with this, or did you all ask, was it only your fellow commissioners who were responsible for these particular?
So who drafted the
yes, sir,
initial motion?
yes, sir. It's only from your commission. Nothing from the community input.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, I mean, evidence
Ms.
supporting
Gall,
those things
so I
came
can answer
from-
this,
oh, sorry.
Dan. I think. So we've explained the process several occasions now. The kind of order of operations was that Commissioner Vena made the motion at the October meeting. The motion passed. The special committee was formed. The special committee, which was me, Commissioner Handerhan, Commissioner Orlowski, and Commissioner Umar, we based on each of the allegations, of the 7 allegations, we looked at the evidence related to each one, and we held a public meeting where folks were allowed to either offer evidence or provide counter evidence to the allegations. We took those comments into consideration. Provided a report for Commissioner Kensick, had a public meeting. Commissioner Kensick was given 5 days to review that report, give it back to us, and then we took the evidence we received initially from commissioners, from the community. We took Commissioner Kensick's response to our report, and we made a final determination. And that is what the recommendation is today.
And that's where I went for Max. That's where I was going. The community's information, I did not see the community input information.
All of the evidence is included in hyperlinks in the report, whether it is emails from outside, whether it is emails from commissioners. All of those are considered when making our decision.
As
And
well
I'm
as
gonna,
the public
and Ms. Gall, I'm
meeting.
gonna end your.
You did not allow me to finish it because you weren't clear on the answer, Max. That's why I'm asking you. The information that you got from the community meeting, it was not applied to this information that you presented.
We did consider the evidence from that community meeting, and we determined that the evidence that was provided warranted the recommendations that were given. All right, I think we can move on to Ms. Hightower.
It looks like her questions are right there and open. So I mean, I guess I don't know who wants to read them, but they're all right there to be.
Ms. Hightower, you can take yourself off of mute.
Yeah, I'm on another call and I've asked this person to put a hold and give me 5 minutes as I'm trying to do 2 things simultaneously, but very quickly. You know what, when I assess, sometimes attitudes don't have to be seen in terms of facial impressions or tones, but the words that one may implement can demonstrate a nice nastiness about you. I love my mother's old saying. It's called, you got to look through a person. But if you're really a team, that's what you do. You say you forewarned. How did you forewarn? If you say you got evidence, what is the real evidence-based outcome that you are using to come up with these 3 reasons to censor? I'm sure when I look on this Zoom, a lot of you may take a drink or 2. And you do what you need to do when you take a drink or 2. This man hasn't killed anybody. This man hasn't robbed anybody. This man hasn't raped anybody. This man hasn't shot anybody. This man hasn't stabbed anybody. I can see you saying, well, look, this is what we feel, but we're not going to censure you this time. What we're going to do is something else. Sometimes when you work with people, you can put a stronger reprimand so they will understand what the next step will be. To come up and compare and accuse him because Gloria Hightower said, I saw him at a club drunk. He didn't have to be drunk. They may say some of you all was drunk coming out of clubs. But so what? What does that have to do with his functionality as a commissioner for 1B? What are the things that he has offered to this committee that the same committee with all of you on, half of you all didn't vote? Just like you don't have a secretary, just like, and I'm being honest with you, just like I don't see any funds that you have to give to people in need, whether it's for social services, etc. Did you down that? Did he offer that? You know what? Come on. You got to get off of your high horses and stop thinking like an elite. And I'm glad to know that some of you will be gone in January. I don't care whether or not you want to hear me or not, but enough is enough. That you know what? And we need an independent. When you do a censor again, you will have an independent attorney. So your personality will not be imposed on anybody, And this is the wrong timing to do anything. Whether you Black, Caucasian, Jewish, Asian, I don't give a blank. This got to be straightened out because you all are thinking like you're high rollers, and you're really not. You're really not. How I wish Carl Racine himself was leading this, because this is garbage and it's an embarrassment. And I don't care for you being Bina. I don't care for you because you're sneaky. But guess what, baby? Me and you gonna be having it, because I don't play that. God bless each of you, but I ask the Lord thy God to take each of you in error to vote this man with a censor with the responsibility of reaping what you sow. That's not what commissioners do. Thank you and have a good night and goodbye. And Orlansky, I would never want you to be an attorney.
That's great.
Thank you, Ms. Hightower.
You don't know me.
Thank you, Ms. Hightower. Sorry, I'm going to remove my share. Next up is Nick Deladon.
Thank you. My name is Nick Deladon, and I'm with DuPont East Civic Action Association. And I want to remind you all, you're all adults, and unfortunately, you're not acting like that in this process. Censure should be taken for grave matter. And we heard Mr. Boehner, who is the origin of this complaint, say that he was disrespected. And I would ask you to look at the code, the criminal code, and find disrespect in the criminal code or any other code, and ask you, how long ago was it, Commissioner Boehner, that you felt that you were disrespected? Just tell us, how long ago was it? And what is the lifespan for a crime like disrespect? So you need to grow up. I know that's hard to take for some of you who are 40 years old, but a little maturity would help a lot. It helps the community. Remember that you're all volunteers. How many times have we heard that? You have a busy schedule. Some of you are trying to raise children or a family, and you have time for this? You have time for this crap? Shame on you. Shame on every one of you. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And this will follow you the rest of your lives. You think you're doing something to Mr. Boehner, you're doing it to yourselves. Remember that.
I'd like to
thank you, Mr. Deladon.
Before we move on to any more comments, I would like to just point out that if you haven't read any of this and you're going to comment on our integrity, please do go back and read what we put in here. There are actual violations of law quoted, code sites in this document.
Yeah, and I sent it to all of them. They all know it. They've read it.
That's fine. I know it too. You actually violated campaign finance laws in the special meeting the other day. Did you not have your campaign signs up? That's a violation. So let's go to the last comment, please, so we can move on.
The last public comment is Melissa Kensick, I believe, and we are going to take a motion after that.
Hi, thank you. I agree with Nick. I think this whole thing stems from disrespect. I guess the whole thing originated from, I guess Eric had made the complaint. He started the head, and then he was, I guess, the head of the special committee that ran the vote. And then it stemmed from, I guess, he stemmed the special committee that everyone from there on felt disrespected from Commissioner Kensick. And then Alan is constantly getting disrespected. It takes one person to disrespect somebody, then constantly disrespects them. I'm sat there in 3 of these meetings where Commissioner Kensick has raised his hand quietly, waits to be called on, is called on and then is constantly cut off, can't get a thought out without being interrupted. I don't see hands raised by Commissioner Harris, Commissioner, anyway, they just interrupt him. That's disrespect. That's a form of disrespect. Whether he has disrespected you in time, or you guys, it's constant disrespect. What Nick just said is it's time for everyone here to grow up and work together as commissioner for your constituents, whatever anyone's butt hurt, whatever it is, grow up, work together. And you guys really look like clowns yelling at each other, not letting Commissioner Bo speak, whatever. Just seriously, you guys are adults representing your community. This is a joke. Whatever it is, maybe he's proud, what he broke the law. You're a lawyer, you're doing slander. However it is, this is all has got to be put behind you guys and grow together for the community. You guys are seriously, there's bigger issues going on here. This right here is ridiculous. The whole thing, stop disrespecting each other and work together. I'm done.
Thank you. We would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I move that the full ANC vote to accept the draft censure resolution against Commissioner Kensick.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion amongst commissioners.
I have a discussion point.
Commissioner Harris.
I would like
Commissioner-
to. Can
I was
you
going to say
all hear me?
Commissioner Harris is first.
Would like to make a friendly amendment to some of the language in the resolution and potentially add a point back one of the allegations. So as one of the people who, the commissioners, and this was an internal thing, this has nothing to do with external, and there has been a lot of evidence. I'm happy to share my screen with that evidence. But instead of using the word disrespect, because frankly, I am disappointed in the committee members. I appreciate the work that you did, but I'm disappointed in that language because it wasn't disrespect, it was harassment. And harassment is demeaning, threatening, and just completely unacceptable and illegal behavior. It is on the spectrum of violence. And it is determined and defined by the person who is experiencing that harassment. As a woman of color, which I'm sure many people on this call would disagree with, I face disrespect every single day of my life. I know what disrespect is. So I would like to add that amendment that it's not disrespect, it is harassment. And there is clear evidence of that.
Commissioner Orlowski, there's an offer of a friendly amendment. Do you accept that friendly amendment?
I'll accept the amendment.
Okay, Commissioner Boehner.
My only discussion point is just that Mr. Daldon and others tried to dismiss this as a simple personal issue, simple disrespect, and that we should focus on the community. Well, one of our rules with the community is to hear community feedback, and people came to us with this. This was predicated by feedback that came to our committee. And it wasn't just that that Alan was drinking in public. Anyone is welcome to go and frequent our establishments, but it was the fact that he was asked to leave and was told and told them, you can't do that. I'm an ANC commissioner. I'm going to get you in trouble. That came to us. We had to act on it. We couldn't not. We reported it to Bega. Nothing happened. And then several other issues cropped up, including harassment of fellow commissioners. So we are serving the community by doing this. I don't want to be doing this. I would rather be focused on a lot of other things. But when one of the chief responsibilities of the ANC is we had 30 minutes almost of working with ABRA licensed establishments. It really undermines our credibility as an ANC if someone is going around and acting with poor conduct at bars and then saying, I'm an ANC commissioner, I don't have to face any consequences. That's all I have to say. I think we should move to a vote as soon as possible. And I agree, we should put this behind us and move forward. But Commissioner Kensick's behavior can't go without a response, and it can't go without accountability. I have nothing against you personally, Alan. I've worked with you. I've tried to help you, and we've gotten coffee when you started we got coffee for 2 hours when you started your term. We've done a lot of things to try and help you succeed and support you, and I will continue to do that for as long as our terms overlap. That's all I have to say.
Commissioner
We're
Umar.
going to go Commissioner Umar.
Yes, if I offended anybody, I apologize for one, first and foremost, right? But I think this should been handled in a better manner. You know, like us had a meeting with the commissioners and presented this evidence among ourselves, right? Opposed to public. And I think it would have been handled much better because, you know, we may have had chance to talk to those people that has those establishments, and it may have been a misunderstanding or anything. I mean, even with, and then behind the fact, you know, it just seemed like a bunch of frustration after that. Like you said, he'll talk, you know, he get cut off, I get cut off, right? And I think that it's, you know, it's a lot of, you know, we need to practice etiquettes more, right? When it comes to us, right? Because we are figureheads. You know, like the brother said, we don't get paid, but we're here for some reason, for some dedication. And mine is to the community that I serve. And I don't think that we should be serving our communities acting like this in public. I think it should have been handled a very different way. Because like I said, I was blindsided when I seen it and when I heard about it. That's why I was acting the way I was showing you the way I was acting because of that. Not because I had an attitude or anything. I had nothing against this brother or any one of you all as being a commissioner. You know, I just met Commissioner Kinsey, right? I seen him do a lot of good things. And as far as what he may have done then, I don't know, right? And I can't judge him for that because I never talked to any people from that establishment to get a feeling or of how it may have happened. So I don't think that, you know, we should be judging this brother the way we doing him right now at all, or anybody else, an ANC commissioner that's on our board in the near future. Without us as the commissioners together, some of us traumatized. We ever think about that? Some of us go through things. We ever think about that? I do all the time in my community. And that's all I have to say. But other than that, besides that, I'm with the brother. Because, you know, we need to be better than this. I'm with him. We need to be better than this.
Thank you, Commissioner Umar. Commissioner Kensick, last point, and then we're going to move to a vote.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. I just would like to say again, you know, during the call the other night, the community call, which I really asked that everyone looks at, that somehow got taken down for 24 hours, which was so ironic that the public couldn't even see it after it was shown. But during that time, Commissioner Baina stated, and I quote, that we went to Bega, someone went to Bega, like he actually switches it. I've spoken to Bega. I've actually been on the phone, Zoom calls with them. They've gone through the supposed allegations that Harris and Baina have brought up. And let's just say that I've talked to them. There's been nothing found. So just because they didn't move on your quick speed, Commissioner Baina decides to do it on himself. Let's get something in. Let's get something in writing. And I know he doesn't relish in this. I know he doesn't relish. I know the situation is so untenable, which I don't even think half the people on the call understands what that means. Our commission, I should say. It's just really unfortunate. But again, I'm going to continue working for the people. And I will tell you, I'm looking forward to next year because we're going to have a new commission. Maybe I'll actually get some orientation, some other commissioners who come in late who don't get orientation. And you guys have not taken me under your wing. You've been rude. You've not answered questions of anything. I tried reaching out to you all, asking you out for drinks and dinner to try to actually get to know you. So it's just really unfortunate to hear, certain people say, I don't relish in this, and this is, it's silly, it's absurd. Again, I think, as some people have pointed out, it's going to show a lot of egg on some people's face on this call, especially after November 8th. Thank you.
To clarify one point, Vega actually told us to deal with it. That's the message we got from them and from everyone else. Since everybody now has had their chance to speak, can we move on to the vote?
Yes, we have a motion before us that's been amended with a friendly amendment. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
2 nays, abstentions. The resolution passes. Next item is Office of the Mayor. Mr. Allen.
Good evening, everyone. I will be very brief. I have updates from DPR. They do have the winter programs kicking off. Aquatics programs started November 1st. And all other programs for winter sports, DPR related, started November 2nd. So let your constituents know that there'll be a lot of programs going on for those youngsters. Also, DPW leaf season starts November 6th. It's be going on up until and through March. So, just keep a reminder about that. I know it's a lot of leaves out there. So yeah, just keep on the lookout, and any updates that you might need, feel free to reach out to me about those. Early voting start on the 1st, and we all know that election day is the 8th of November. So make sure we get out there and vote and participate in that. I'm not sure if if Councilmember Nadeau spoke about the groundbreaking at the Sitar Center this past Wednesday, but it's a great showing. A lot of great stuff coming in the upcoming year with that project, and it was long awaited, and that building's been there unused for a while. So great thing there. And yeah, that's all I got. Any questions for me that you may have, I can take those.
I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
Yes, Gerard, I have a question. So recently it's been activists in the area, housing activists have been trying to communicate that I know this is outside of Ward 1, but the McPherson Square encampment is going to be removed by the National Park Service. A lot of the folks who are, is my understanding, a lot of the folks who are in that encampment have also been moved from the Gompers site and from the 11th and Mass site, all of which are National Park Service owned land. I just think it would be important, because the district does not manage this space, and the federal government can just, without any oversight from the people who actually live there, just conduct sweeps and stuff like that. And I think that the mayor should at least be transparent about what conversations are happening, if any, and if not, she needs to start conversations with the National Park Service to create a process for this, because it is not fair to those people who are using that space, who need resources, and the city is not doing enough to get them those resources. I don't know what this process could look like. I don't think it is up to me to decide, but I think the mayor should take steps to try and work with the National Park Service on this, because it is an issue that is going to continue to get worse and worse. The housing market is really bad. Homelessness is rising. And if the city does nothing and is apathetic towards it, it's going to continue to be a problem. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
I think we're unique here in the district in that we have so much small federal space. that you would think is a DC park when it's really belonged by the federal government. And it really is unique to us. And these little things, you would think that the Park Service would want to move them to the district instead of maintaining them. One ANC, one in Adams Morgan, I think it's Adams Morgan, but don't quote me on that. One installed trees with public money. Unfortunately, part of the parks was
Owned by the
federal property,
Yeah.
and they were not able to claim that expenditure for trees. So
yeah, it's a frustrating issue.
So I will add that we do all know that it is a growing population of just a lot of residents that just through just homelessness or just lack of a place to go. Most of the residents that are, deemed encampments that are housed either in a National Park Service regulatory park or anywhere, when they're getting engaged, if they if they're moved, more times than not, they have engaged and they're in the process of getting housing.
Then how come they are being moved from NPS location to NPS location, NPS location? These people have been gone through this process multiple times and it is inhumane. The city needs to do more then.
I understand, but you got to understand as well, just to give, like, most of the people, when you're engaging, like I've engaged with a lot of them, most of the time, not only do you want to get them housing, but now you got to go get them birth certificate, go get Social Security. You got to get a lot of things.
And the sweeps make it more difficult to do so. I understand that.
Yeah, I will. And then again, some residents don't even want to engage with a resource. So you do have a plethora of issues, and you don't have many solutions because these are kind of new issues with the pandemic. And I'm not giving any answers right now, but I'm just
I understand. It's just something I want you to take to the mayor's office.
Again, no, it's definitely out there. I'm actually going down with DBH to a known 600 and 700 block of T Street, and I'm trying to actually engage in different initiatives. Like whatever's been rolled out has not been working. So I'm trying to get with these agencies whose job, DMHHS, I forget
DBH and
DBH, but it's a
DHS,
group. All the groups, and Miriam's Kitchen, who's overstretched. Like I'm trying to see what can my
John, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So I think this is a really important issue and might be a good topic for like a future presentation at an ANC. Because depending on the voucher, the process is different. And as someone who works in homeless services for 4 years, like I know that ability to engage or interest in engaging is like the number one obstacle. But that's not the whole picture, right? There's like so many different factors. I think we would all benefit, including myself, from like a refresher about how the voucher, how Housing First works, how the connections work, why the cleanups happen, whether they, I think it would be really valuable to us and our constituents. So maybe that's something you could take back and see if DMHHS would lead, or I'm sure my former colleagues at THS would love the chance to talk to us.
Thank you, Commissioner Hinhorn. Yeah, I think that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Oh, I just quickly wanted to thank you, Jared, for working with the folks in my SMD who had the fire last week. I know you worked with a lot of those families, so I just wanted to show my appreciation. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Is that all for your update, Mr. Allen?
Yep, that's all of my updates. I'm good from there. I thought Max had another question. I seen his hand up, but
my bad.
No,
thank you, Gerard. I appreciate it.
No problem. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Kevin from the council member's office.
Apologies, Chair. Kevin will not be speaking because Councilmember Nadeau was present earlier in the info session.
Okay,
But
Commissioner-
for any community members, Kevin did drop his email in the chat. So if you do have questions for Councilmember Nadeau or for her office, I'll repost his email into the chat.
Commissioner announcements of any events or activities.
There was a question by Karen Gall in regards to the
Wait.
finances.
Wait, so this is commissioner announcements, then committee announcements. I just wanted to say that on November 30th, we're having another meeting with the developers of the Faircliff East project. It's on November 30th. If you want to be looped in to that meeting, I can send out the Zoom link and I'll make sure it's in our next newsletter. It's at the end of this month. Thanks.
Community announcements.
We have 3 hands up, but I just want to clarify. I think Melissa Kinsick, I think you had your hand up, but if you would like to speak, just put it in the Q&A. Okay. Iskal, you can take yourself off of mute.
Good evening, everyone. I know this has been a very long evening, so I just want to announce that, you know, we have regular 3rd District Citizens Advisory Council meetings the last Thursday of every month, and it's always a pleasure to have the commissioners attend the meeting, and that it's serving, of course, all of the ANCs under the 3rd District. And as a community member, I had requested this, and I was just wondering, because I did not hear that the financial report come across the committee the meeting this evening. Is it possible to get the annual 1B financial report? I know all the other commissions have sent theirs out throughout the Ward 1, but can we have that actually as a community? There was some discussion in regards to the financial coffers of 1B. And I have seen the quarterly reports for last year, but nothing for the 2022. So I would like to see if you all can produce that information for the community. Thank you.
Ms. Gall, those are issued quarterly, not annually. There is a provision for an annual report, but that's more of a here's how many requests, here's how many committee meetings. The quarterly financials are filed with the Office of the ANC.
Yes, sir. I got that. I have theirs, but your 2022s have not been, it doesn't show up. So I do have.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I do have the report for, the quarterly reports for the previous year, but nothing for 2022. And I just wanted to see the reflection of the information that was shared in your October's meeting. So I certainly would like to see that. And I do understand what you were about to say, but I want to hear fully what you were about to say. Go ahead, please.
Yes, we issue them quarterly. I believe that there is a working drive that all commissioners have access to. And I did speak with the Office of the OANC on why the past year had not been posted. They tell me that they will be posted forthwith because they've just hired the new IT person and they were unable to post any of the ANCs, not just 1B, but all of them, and that those were going to be loaded as quickly as possible. The OANC is responsible for reviewing and finalizing what the reports are.
You know what, Commissioner Turner,
yes,
someone just posted the link and I checked it out. It's showing up. So like you,
I posted the link.
That's that real time stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, Ms. Gall, what you do want to see is the ones at OANC, because
Yes,
those are the ones after adjustments have been made for any errors in accounting and anything that may have been disallowed.
Yes,
sir. These are posted on the official ANC website. So they did post FY22 financial reports on their website.
Oh,
Okay. That was just recently done. Thank you very much, Chair Turner. Thank you.
Any other comments?
One last one from Mr. Deladon.
Thank you. I want to make a report for our association, DuPont East Civic Action Association. We're pleased to report to our friends that on Monday, the court handed out a decision in our favor. And this is the case where we sued the city because of the Masonic Temple development. They tried to put up a building behind their temple too large and not in context with the historic district. And we filed an application to extend the boundary line east to 15th Street, so it would take up the whole block. And they denied that, and the judge did not find a problem with that, but she said the application was to extend the boundary line and you reduced the boundary line, and that you have no authority to do. And so she vacated the decision of the HPRB. And is interesting now, in all this time, it took a while to go through the courts, but she awarded us court costs and fees, and she excoriated the HPRB, and it's really a hoot to read this. I'll be glad to forward the decision to you or our press release. You can reach me all the time at keepdupontgreen@gmail.com, keepdupontgreen@gmail.com. I'll be glad to send that to you. I think you'll enjoy it. In any case, it is historic. And we said this from the beginning, it certainly was a long shot, but sometimes it's important to take a long shot, and some people will be listening. The mayor was not listening, HPO was not listening, Perseus was not listening, and so on. But we're very glad to the outcome, and we'll see what comes of it. Of course, the judge did not know that at the present time, there is a 5-story building on that historic landmark, which is not allowed.
Thank you, Mr. Deladon, for your update on your civic association.
Thank you.
Can I ask for Ms. Gall to drop in her information on the CAC into the chat or into the Q&A, just so we can share that out? I don't know if she received my chat, but if you hear me, if you can go ahead and drop it in, I think that would be really helpful.
I have the email. I'll just put it in.
Yeah, Commissioner Gall put it in the Q&A. We got it. I'm going to copy it into the chat for everyone.
Yeah, I see it from Ms. Gall.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Gall.
Are there any other community announcements? With that, we are adjourned for our November meeting. We will have one more meeting in December. At the December meeting, we will need to plan for transition of those to 1A, 1E, and to enable 1B to start its business in January. With that, good night, everyone.
Hey, Chair, quick question. We're meeting in person, right, for December? It is in person. We agreed to October and December in person.
I just don't know anymore.
No, I believe it's still virtual.